Senate Judiciary is now in session. We're going to start off with SB 552. The Honorable Senator Kevin Avard is going to introduce that. Kevin, tell me about 552 and tell me about you and your district first.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members. For the record, I'm Senator Kevin Avard from District 12, and I am the prime sponsor on SB 552. And I come before you as a senator, as a father of 3, as a grandfather of 8, and we're deeply concerned about the privacy, safety of parents and future opportunities of my daughters and my granddaughters here in New Hampshire. I got 4 granddaughters. It's kind of aging me here. SB 552 is about protecting women and young men's rights and girls in personal private spaces like bathrooms, locker rooms, and athletic settings where biological differences matter, where people have a responsible expectation of privacy and fairness. In school sports, the concerns are both about safety and opportunity. Biological males are on average larger, faster, and stronger than biological females. And that creates real risk of injury, but it also affects fairness. When biological males take the spot of a girl's team, a young woman may lose playing time or a roster spot, potential scholarships or opportunities that she's worked very hard to earn. I have heard these concerns directly from parents in my district, and I've heard from business leaders, religious leaders, who want clear guidance on whether they may maintain sex-separate private facilities without putting themselves in legal liability because our laws are not clear right now. SB 552 is a middle ground solution, and it does not impose mandates. It does not tell anyone what policies they must adopt. Instead, it provides clarity in the law and restores local decision-making so schools, businesses, religious organizations can do as they believe is best for their students, their customers, their communities, and their parishioners. This bill is not intended to roll back or weaken any anti-discrimination protections. Those protections remain fully intact. SB 552 simply clarifies that the law gives individual entities the ability to make reasonable, common sense decisions without fear of unintended legal consequences. What it doesn't do, it does not mandate sex-separated bathrooms, locker rooms, or sports teams. It does not force schools, businesses, organizations, such as churches, to change existing policies. It does not remove gender identity or any protected class from the state law. It does not authorize harassment, exclusion, or blanket discrimination. And it does not interfere with a single user or family restroom options. Committee, I go to the gym just about every day. And at the gym, we have a lady who I would call her the mayor of the gym. She is everywhere talking to everybody in the gym. And I walked up to her while she was talking to another lady, and I interjected myself into the conversation. I asked her directly, them both directly, if I walked into the bathroom right now and I had a little bit of makeup on and was wearing some pink shorts, would you have a problem with that? And she said, absolutely. And the other lady who served in mental health for 30 years, she was very, very abrupt. She said, I would tell you to F out of there. I said, interesting. And then I asked the lady who was in the mental health care industry for that long time, I said, so what if I had a mental illness? And honestly, her face changed. She immediately started to consider that whole scenario in a different light. And she was really sincere about that. And I said, okay, well, while you're thinking about that, let me ask you another question. Supposing I had evil intent and I wanted to just gratify myself, could you tell the difference if I was mentally ill or if I had evil intent? And as quickly as she told me to F out of there, she said, no, you cannot tell. And I said, ah, that's interesting. And you've been in the industry for over 30 years. She said, yeah. And I think that's very enlightening because this is how women feel direct when their private spaces in bathrooms, not just locker rooms, bathrooms as well. And of course, there was an incident in one of the nationally known facilities where a gentleman went into the bathroom dressed like a woman and started taking care of business, if you will, and be discreet. And it offended a lot of women in such a way that it made social media, whatever. But the issue is privacy, and they don't want to feel afraid. It's a fact. Just people off the street, people in the gym, people everywhere you talk. And I can tell you right now that people are afraid to speak up lest they be considered phobic of some sort. They're tired of getting peer pressured into this. They feel as though, well, if I speak my mind, I'm going to get picketed or browbeat. And that goes on. So this bill really is, again, it doesn't mandate anything. It says to the businesses or that you have an option. If you want to put up a sign that says biological, male, female only, that's your privilege. You will not be sued. It doesn't mandate that. And that's a key point. It gives them that option. So recently I went to Israel. It was really interesting. It was beautiful there. I loved it. I went to the wall. And at the wall, right to the left, there's bathrooms. I can tell you that if a biological female went into the men's room, that would be a sacred abomination to them. And they would come unglued because they would feel a defilement of their conscience, their religious liberty. There are Orthodox Greeks and there are Orthodox Catholics and there are Orthodox Protestants that would feel the exact same way. So if an individual goes to a congregation where they reject their biological makeup and consider themselves of the different sex and walked into one of those bathrooms, now if the church or the synagogue or the mosque said you can't be in here, and that person would still at this point have a right to sue because of discrimination, and they would have to violate what is core to them. This says if you put up the biological sign, you will not be sued. And that's a very important distinction because now you're hitting to the core of their beliefs and having to surrender what they hold dear as a holy site, separate, which is extremely important to them. So with that, I'll end my testimony and take on any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Senator. Just a couple quick ones from me. So in the business, you're letting them do what they want, male, female, maybe a third one if they want. It's up to them.
It's up to them.
Who would enforce if like I come up and I say, there's someone who shouldn't be in one of the rooms? Is that person, are they going to call the police? Are they going to then enforce it on their own? What are you going to do? And how do you know? Who's
Right.
who?
Well, first of all, the question begs the question that once it gets into the fact that the individuals that reject their biology and consider themselves a different gender would not obey the law. That's not what you're asking, though, right?
No, we can move on from me. School bathrooms, are they going to be involved here at all?
If the school department says that's going to be the policy, then
So we're going to have individual towns making decisions.
it's up to them.
Okay. Are you not worried
There's
that
no
we're going to?
mandates.
Okay. That's fine. You answered my question. Thank you. Yes, Senator Oster.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator, for taking my question. So the enforcement, what happens when somebody misgenders another person, like what happened in Boston at the Liberty Hotel when a woman was misgendered in the bathroom and then, attacked? So what happens when you misgender, like when,
What do you mean
when-
attacked?
what do I mean?
Yeah.
Security guard took her out. Like, did you not? Okay. Well,
That's an
So-
attack. Is that an attack? Okay.
took her out, physically removed her from the bathroom.
Mhm.
Yeah. So woman went into the ladies' room, was misgendered by another guest, told a security guard, and the security guard removed this woman from the ladies' room. So what happens if that situation occurs?
Well, right now, we don't have that situation. Right now, if an individual breaks the law in such a manner, like, say, like the person in California that was masturbating in the ladies' room, what do you do in that situation?
That's
So
criminal.
it
though.
is a different situation, correct. So
Yeah.
how do you enforce that? You have two extremes. How do you enforce it? Well, I don't know that you can do body checks. I assume that the people of that community who believe they're of a different gender would obey the law. Now, when somebody is misidentified, I think you got a lawsuit on your hand. And that individual, I'm sure she's suing right now, and she has every right to.
Follow up?
Yes, please. So I looked at Senate Bill 552 in comparison to Senate Bill 268, which you filed at this time last year. And there's no difference. Side by side, there's no difference between them. And last year's bill was vetoed by Senator Ayotte.
Governor
And-
Ayotte?
I'm sorry, Governor Ayotte. And the year prior to that, House Bill 148, same language, also vetoed. And before that, Governor Sununu vetoed another one. So what do you think has changed that now this would become appealing to enshrine discrimination into our laws that we worked so really hard on in 2018? I was here for that.
Yeah, I really thank you for that question. That's a very important question because both bodies, both the Senate and the House, passed it that many times, and one individual vetoed it. So we're giving them another chance. Same bill,
Two people.
He's asked and answered. Further questions?
one person at a time
Senator
vetoed it, vetoed the bill. So, yeah, two people.
Senator Reardon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for taking my question. I feel like you're mixing apples and oranges here. A couple of times in your testimony, we're talking about people who may or may not present as a different gender than they were born. There are lots of people in this world in that situation, and I don't think I'm an expert on telling who was born what sex. I know how somebody's presenting to me. A couple of times in your testimony, you've alluded to criminal acts in a bathroom. And are you pursuing here, you're talking about people masturbating or whether somebody's going to be attacked or anything like that. Are you presuming that the people that we're talking about in this bill right here are criminals or are just everyday citizens who happen to be using the bathroom of the choice that they made?
Yeah, and I actually made that kind of distinction earlier in that the people that if this goes into effect and there's a sign that says biological sex only in this particular bathroom due to what the business or the church or organization wants, and somebody violates that, then that's a criminal act. Right now, it's not.
Follow up?
Follow.
So you're not limiting this to people who are actually committing crimes that are on our books right now, that are within the criminal code. You're saying that just the being of these people, if they step from this space into this space, is committing a crime.
If the business chose to put that in there, they would not be discriminated for putting up that sign. So the businesses are, we're holding them harmless for the distinction. If it is discovered that that distinction has happened, them not being a biological male or a biological female, then they would have recourse to take action. But how would you enforce that? Well, that's a good question. But it also assumes that the people that do identify in the opposite sex of what they were born with wouldn't obey the law, right?
Let me follow up, and maybe this will clarify.
You
May
can.
I?
He's asked and answered that, though. He's
Yep.
made himself clear.
Totally got that. Totally got that. We've had a number of these hearings over the last couple of years, and there's been lots of people that have come and testified who have said that they have transitioned from one sex to another within their lifetime. And in 95% of those cases, I do okay. I mean, I assumed that was a woman sitting in front of me from birth. There's nothing. So in those cases, which is 95% of the cases for me personally, different for everybody else, I walk into a woman's room. Maybe I have more experience with women's room than you do.
Well, I've cleaned a lot of them.
I walk into a woman's room, maybe chat with somebody, but go into a stall.
Mhm.
And nobody ever sees anything personal about me. So I'm really curious, unless it's a criminal, which we've already covered here, that there are criminal laws to take action on those people who are criminals, what difference it makes.
Well, let's take a religious organization, whether it's an Orthodox Jew or an Orthodox Greek. You're violating their conscience if it's a multiple stall bathroom. You're violating their religious creeds in a very serious manner. You can't. A woman going into the say an Orthodox Jew bathroom or an Islam or Muslim bathroom, you're violating something very sacred to them. And if it is discovered, that is a real abomination to them. Why do they have the special right to do that? This basically gives them the opportunity to say, that can't happen. And if it does, there'll be legal repercussions. But it also assumes that these individuals will obey the law. You're violating somebody's deep convictions when you allow that to happen. And this protects those organizations from capitulating to that abomination in their minds. So it protects them from legal recourse if they say, no, you can't be in here. No, you're not going to take somebody by force. Maybe you do.
Different tact.
Different.
He's answered you.
Different.
You're a trial lawyer. You don't always get the answers you want. So
Yeah, I'm not asking the same
Okay.
question again.
okay.
Thank you. Last one. Is it an abomination if nobody knows?
God knows.
And me and my God have those conversations.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One further, different tact.
Yes,
Question. Great.
thank you. So I'm glad you had an opportunity to travel to Israel. It's a very special place, and glad you had that opportunity. I do wonder, though, were you aware that the Israeli government actually provides legal and medical support for transgender people, and that the Israeli government actually embraces transgender people and does not have any kind of laws like this that would segregate based on gender?
Well, I know that there's a large LGBTQ community there, and we've met a lot of individuals there. I wasn't aware that they have that as a policy, but I can assure you that a female would not enter into one of those, a synagogue male bathroom, regardless of what the government says.
Okay, last follow-up and I'm
Sure,
done.
last one.
So I'm struck by the assurances you would give on another culture. But we're talking about New Hampshire and what's going to happen right here in our state. And but would you believe that Judaism actually embraces transgender people? And there are some, would you believe that there are modern Orthodox actually do embrace transgender people? So it's,
I guess it all
do you
depends
feel a
on what
little
you mean by-
uncomfortable speaking for Jews?
I guess it all depends on what you mean by embrace. We embrace everybody that's made in the image of God. Everybody. Nobody said anything about not embracing them.
Oh, they just can't go to the bathroom though.
You can't violate their private space, but there's nothing that says we do not embrace them. Everyone is created in the image of God. We're commanded to love our neighbor as ourselves according to the Torah.
Thank you for your answer. Appreciate it. We're all set.
That's it. Thank you very much.
Representative Wade, I promised you next. I know you have places to be next door. Miss Simmons, you're on deck. There you are. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for taking my testimony. For the record, I am Representative Alice Wade, representing Stratford 15 and Dover Ward 2, and I'm here today to oppose SB 552. So, to start off, what restroom should I go to in the State House? Where do you want me? Do you want me in the men's room? I don't want me in the men's room. I haven't been in the men's room in 6 years, but I'm a trans woman. And let's say this law passes and the House decides we're going to enforce a bathroom policy here at the State House. And I'm not going into the men's room. I'll tell you that right now. I am more likely to be assaulted in the men's room. Statistically, trans women, when forced to go into the men's room, are, I believe it's somewhere along the lines of at least 4 times as likely to be assaulted. We are the people who are being targeted here. And the testimony before makes absolutely no sense, because if I walk into the women's room, and even if somebody points at me and says, I think you're trans, how in the hell are they going to prove that? I'll give you my driver's license. It says female. Like, what do you want from me? Do you want me to strip down? What if I just say, no, I'm not trans? How are you going to prove that? And we've seen it happen. As you cited in Boston, Senator Altshuler, it's happened in Boston, it's happened in Arizona, it's happened in Florida, where random citizens think they are vigilantes and think they can tell whoever is trans. And they are wrong. They accuse cis people all the time of being transgender. People have police called on them. Cis people, cis women, have police called on them. And police, bang on the door of the stall and shine flashlights under there. The police are the only men in the restroom in that case. And the woman literally came out, saw the police officers, and lifted up her shirt to try and prove she was a woman, and they didn't even believe her. This enforcement, as Governor Sununu said in his veto message, this enforcement will lead to everybody getting hurt. And Kelly Ayotte agreed with that. There are 5 almost identical bills to this year. There were 2 or 3 last year. I lose track because of how many there are. And I don't care what he said about everybody, in his words, he thinks everybody is made in the image of God. He just called me an abomination. That's fucked up. And I don't know what to say. We don't legislate based on religious creed. We don't. Separation of church and state. That's what we do here. We're not here to legislate based on one religious sect's opinions. And, the reason these laws are being pushed is not because trans women have shown statistically more likely to be perpetrators of this. This law doesn't apply to anybody committing a crime. If I go into the restroom and I use it like normal, that would be considered a crime, even if I don't do anything at all. And I just keep to myself, I don't say anything, I walk into a stall, and hopefully I wish more people would wash their hands, frankly, when they go out of the restroom. I feel like that's probably more of a urgent issue we should be focusing on. But when trans women are the people being assaulted, when we're the people being called abominations and being demonized and dehumanized on national television over and over and over again, Fox News has more stories about trans people than transgender outlets in the entirety of the US. I'm not kidding. This is day by day by day, just these constant attacks that are baseless, that have no evidence, where they're just accusing an entire class of people of violating privacy just by existing. When you call me an abomination, that's what you're doing. People are dying. I have had to console too many grieving mothers and fathers to count. Please stop making more of them. Dear God. That's my testimony, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Sims. Did you sign, are you on here too? Did you sign? Okay, I wrote you in anyways. Okay, thank you. So if you can try, like she just went, you didn't read any, she didn't read a word. It was great. So talking from the heart gets everyone more. We'll have your testimony. Okay, as little of the looking as you can. Be great. Thank you.
Is this on now?
Yep.
Okay,
red button,
good.
you're great.
Thank you, dear Chairman Gannon and members of the Judiciary Committee. My name's Bronwyn Sims. I'm an athlete and a girls and women's gymnastics coach in Keene, New Hampshire. And I'm submitting testimony today as a concerned New Hampshire woman and as the leader of Independent Women's Network. I'm the Southern New Hampshire chapter leader, which supports practical policies that protect freedom, opportunity, and safety for women and girls. I want to just thank you for holding a hearing on Senate Bill 552 today, and I strongly urge the committee to pass this important bill. Government officials, at the behest of activists, have tried to pretend away the basic biological differences between women and men. Because of that, women and girls have been expected to give up their privacy, safety, and sense of security in places where those things should be guaranteed, like restrooms, locker rooms, prisons, and other single-sex spaces. Our needs have been rendered secondary to the desires of men who want to invade our spaces. SB 552 is a straightforward common sense, and it makes sure that women and girls aren't required to share those intimate, female-only areas with men. The bill sets clear rules to protect single-sex facilities while still respecting the rights of every resident in New Hampshire. This legislation simply preserves what women and girls have always had, private spaces that not only protect them from violence and indignity, but allow them to flourish. There is nothing controversial in expecting our elected officials will protect us from this long assumed right being trampled on. If New Hampshire passes SB 552, the state will clearly show that the privacy, safety, and equal chances for women and girls are worth defending. I respectfully ask the committee to move SB 552 forward. Thank you. Yes, sir.
So again, and
Yeah.
doesn't matter my position, the enforcement part, I appreciate both sides. The enforcement part is something like the past governor and before.
Yes.
I help me how we're going to enforce this without running into problems, like the other senators have said.
Well, sir, I personally did have a trans person in the locker room with me when I was undressed in Keene. And unfortunately, this person, I was naked, I was alone in the locker room, I had just come out of the shower, and he was the only other person in the locker room with me, and he immediately came over into my space. I quickly gathered my things and went into a locked room, and this person unfortunately lingered in that locker room space for 20 minutes, and I couldn't leave that space. When I spoke to the guy at the front desk, he was sympathetic to me. I was very respectful, and I said to him, are you now allowing men who think they're women in women's locker rooms at the Keene YMCA? And he said no. He seemed sympathetic to me, but his only recourse to me was to hand me the business card of the director of the Y. And unfortunately, I had tried to call this director 3 different times. He didn't return my call. When I finally had a conversation with him, the conversation was very misogynistic. He was disrespectful to me. I have since quit going there, and I'll never go to that Y again. And I stated to him that I wouldn't be attending any other gyms in Keene because simply I don't feel safe there as someone who has unfortunately had incidences of violence from men. I've been mugged 3 times. I was held up at gunpoint when I was 16 years old. So I think it's ridiculous to think that it's okay to allow men who believe that they're women to come into a locker room space or bathroom space. So I have a violent past, unfortunately, with incidences when I had been mugged and held up at gunpoint when I worked at my first job. So I also coach little girls and every day, and I can't imagine what it would be like for a child, that somebody that I coach who's 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, to encounter a man in the locker room when they're undressed. And there are kids in the locker room all the time. So I'm not really sure why this is an issue at all, because common sense should prevail in this situation.
Very good. Any other questions? Are we all set? Oh, Senator Reardon.
Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
taking my question.
No problem.
And I'm sorry for what you've experienced. That is
Thank you,
traumatic,
Senator.
And I'm heartfelt in saying that. The person that testified just before you,
Yes.
do you think it's safe to send her into a men's locker room?
No, I don't think it's safe to send her or him into a men's. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to call somebody who's not actually a woman. That's
But we don't know.
okay. Look, I don't think that. If you want to solve this situation, why don't you have a third option for a bathroom? Then they can use that bathroom. But I think women deserve to have their own bathroom. I also spoke with a woman who's a mother who has small boys, and she does not want women in the boys' room. So why can't we have a boys' room and a girls' room, and then you have your third option? What's the matter with that? Yeah, no problem. Thank
Appreciate
you.
your testimony. Sorry, all the
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Experiences
Thank
are
you
good.
very much, sir.
executive counselor. Where are you? Come on up.
Me?
Oh, what, do you want to testify?
Oh, no, I'm just here to support my child.
Oh, okay, okay. I was pointed out you were here and
Thank you.
recognizing
Thank
it.
you for the opportunity.
Does anyone else have to? I had someone else. Oh, Sarah Terrell. You had to leave. Are you Sarah?
Thank you for hearing my testimony.
No problem. So again, if you can speak to us, it's more compelling.
Indeed, I
and
will.
We'll read everything
Yes.
you hand us.
And so I'm going to set this here for you so you can perhaps see it. She did not want to come today, but this is my daughter.
Okay.
She's 17. She's transgender. She had a boy in her school threaten to rape her, and you want me to send her into that boy's locker room? I just want to be clear. This is what the senator is suggesting. So it's a little bit hard and personal for me, but my name is Sarah Terrell. I'm a lifelong resident in New Hampshire. I was here last year when we did this for HB 148 and SB 268, and here I am again today. I've just sort of mostly copied and repasted my testimony for you because it's all the same things, right? I have this 17-year-old girl. I never have a problem sharing a bathroom with her, except that she leaves makeup on the counter. So I'm pretty sure any of you would have a similar experience. I've never felt unsafe in a restroom. I've never felt worried for my safety anywhere. I am a cisgender woman. I have never experienced men in makeup coming into a restroom. I'm certain that I have shared restrooms with transgender women and never known it, because we all do. My primary confusion is that if this is about protecting women's safety, because it's always women's safety, we're never worried about what's happening in men's restrooms, then
How about we enact stronger harassment laws, stronger laws for violence against women? There are many things that you could do if this is the premise. If the premise is women aren't safe, which I'm not actually seeing or hearing or reading anywhere in the news, then let's enact those laws. This law assumes that my 17-year-old daughter is a predator. That woman assumes that my 17-year-old daughter is going to go into a locker room and somehow assault other people for whatever reason. I don't know, because that's not what she does. She goes into locker rooms and restrooms for the exact same reason as every other woman or man in their respective locker rooms and restrooms. I cannot stay. I am sorry. So here's my testimony on SB 552. And here's my testimony on SB 459. Similar thoughts and comments. And I will leave you with the same thing that I say to each and every senator every single time I come here. You hold immense power over my daughter's life and safety. And I am asking you, I am begging you to please help me keep my child safe. These laws do not do that. They make her so unsafe in this state. And we're still here while most of the other families are moving out, and we're trying to stay and fight. But you make it really hard. Happy to take any questions you have. Thank you.
Yeah, nice. Hi, I'm Beth Scare from Nashua, and to answer Representative Wade's question, I don't want to see him in a women's restroom. And I know other women have said the same. I'm a grandmother from Nashua, and I'm here to support SB 552. I'm wearing my suffragette sash to remind everyone that this bill protects women's rights. It protects our rights to safety and privacy. You will hear opponents of the bill insist it's not safe for trans-identified males to use men's restrooms and locker rooms or be in men's prisons. Why aren't men's spaces safe? It's because men are in there. Have trans rights activists ever stopped to think that by insisting that women's spaces be open to trans-identified males, that they have made these formerly safe spaces into dangerous spaces? An estimated 91% of victims of rape and sexual assault are female, and nearly 99% of perpetrators are male. A large percentage of trans-identifying males are sexually attracted to women, and they transition because they have a sexual fetish called autogynephilia. Should men with autogynephilia be given access to women's, girls' spaces of intimate privacy or women's prisons? Many people who support allowing men and women's spaces scream and holler when you tell them women and girls are being exposed to naked men in their spaces, and those men are watching women and girls undress. They insist it isn't happening. They can't deal with the truth that the system of protecting women and girls is broken down. It needs to be fixed, and this bill will help to fix it. Let Planet Fitness choose to allow men into their women's locker rooms. Women can choose whether or not to join that gym and risk seeing a man undressing or a man watching them undress, or they can join a gym that respects their privacy and safety. If you hear anyone today insisting that trans-identified males are in danger if they are placed in men's prison, then they don't know what they're talking about. Trans-identified males are put in men's prisons in New Hampshire, and we need to keep it that way. Women in prison do not deserve to be locked up with criminal males. If you respect women and girls and you don't want them left vulnerable, please vote ought to pass in SB 552. Thanks.
Good afternoon, Nancy Biederman. I am a mother, daughter, wife. I have 2 daughters. I'm also an educator. I have a master's degree in elementary education and early childhood. I've testified before on this, and I'm here about the minor children and keeping them safe. We do have federal law that in Section 106.33 of Title IX that explicitly allows separation of restrooms and locker rooms based on sex. It's in law. And and since we already have that in law, I don't understand why schools are not following that and making sure. We had a situation in New Boston where we had a little girl who thought she was a boy using the boys' bathroom. She was 9 years old. So we had multiple boys who were refusing to go to the boys' bathroom all day long. Nothing was done to support those boys. So this one child was able to disrupt the rest of the students instead of anyone looking out for those students. And the school never did provide anything for the boys who did not and would refuse. I mean, they would literally go up to the boys' bathroom and like slowly open the door. What is that doing it to them? What is that doing to their self-worth when nobody is supporting them and their administration is saying, sorry, tough luck? We definitely know that we can differentiate based on biological sex, discrimination because of gender ideology, our identity. Appeals courts in different parts of the country have found that biological sex separation is allowed, including the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals in Adams and the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals in Etsy. Most recently, the U.S. Supreme Court case, Ames versus Ohio Department of Youth Services, has said that a majority class can put forth that they're discriminated against and do not have to have more evidence than a minor class does. So that is anyone in a majority class can now sue for discrimination based in Title VII cases. Separated facilities are justified by the school's interest in protecting its students' bodily privacy. Schools that open private facilities to opposite sex subject their students to sexual harassment. Who has the power? We've already heard someone say, you have the power. The governor has the power. The minor children don't have the power. They're the ones that are experiencing the sexual harassment. According to New Hampshire School Board Policy ACA, Title IX of the Education Amendment Act of 1972, as well as RSA 19338, among others, the school does not discriminate on the basis of sex in its educational programs and activities, including employment and admissions. All forms of sex-based discrimination, including sexual harassment, are prohibited in the state. By allowing opposite sex children into bathrooms, locker rooms, you are subjecting those students to sexual harassment. Many students are exceedingly uncomfortable at this young age, and students would often rather endure the sexual harassment than risk the harassment and stigma that comes with going against the authority of their school. Students who should not have to navigate sharing private facilities, places that are set apart for the removal of clothing outside of the presence of the opposite sex. Allowing the opposite biological sex to use the bathroom at any school is sexual harassment. Therefore, it's sufficient to justify that having sex-based separation of privacy facilities should be done. Let me remind you that sexual harassment is about power, and that power is not with the minor students or any prisoner or any citizen in New Hampshire. Legislature, governor, you guys have the power, not us. We finally have a state law that protects women on the sports playing field. Now it's time for them to protect them off the field too. Separate spaces exist because biological differences matter for safety, comfort, and fairness. Ignoring that reality does not help women. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this one. Hazel Kane.
Oh, I got all my papers here.
So it's a lot of paperwork, so we're gonna try. If you just talk to us,
I understand.
if you can turn that in their pocket while you're talking, read it.
No, it's okay.
Let's do it.
This is just notes. I don't even really look at my notes, so I'm testifying. Yeah, this is unrelated to this bill. So I thank the Honorable Judiciary Committee for having me here today. I am here to express my opposition to SB 552. I think something that really needs to be brought up here, I've heard a lot of this discussed in the past testimony. We're really conflating and assuming that trans women are indistinguishable from cisgender men. And something that's kind of odd to me about that statement is that if you thought and acted exactly like a man, you would effectively be a man. What is the logic in going through transitioning and completely changing the way you present and act if you are indistinguishable from men? So I already know there's something off there. But to that point, somebody said about autogynephilia, that people transition and go through this extensive hormone replacement and other gender-affirming surgeries just to be able to pursue a fetish. Well, one of the first things that transgender women take as part of the transitioning process is testosterone blocker. And I think we all know that, as anti-trans activists would like to point out, those are used to chemically castrate sex offenders. And apparently that works pretty well to cut off libido. As a matter of fact, testosterone is linked to aggression and libido and is primarily the reason why men are known to be more violent. So if you're a trans woman who has testosterone at or even below the levels of a cisgender female, as I know from personal experience to be the case, the aggression and libido problem should be effectively redressed anyway. But I want to point out another problem with this bill, in that we're asking the wrong question here. We're talking about taking trans women out of women's private spaces. Who are the cisgender men that are insisting on the state forcing trans women into their private, intimate spaces? Why do men want trans women so badly in their bathrooms and locker rooms? And I think we have a theory behind this, because preoperative transsexual women are actually among the top 6 most searched categories on pornography websites. There is clearly an undiscussed fetish among cisgender men toward transgender women that's not being talked about here. And the facts actually would back this up, because we know what happens when transgender women are forced to be in close confined spaces with cisgender men. That's the prison system. 99% of transgender female inmates are incarcerated among males in male facilities. They experience a 59% rate of sexual assault. They are 9 times more likely than other inmates to be sexually assaulted by another inmate, 5 times more likely to be sexually assaulted by a corrections official. And this is interesting too, because transgender women, in all the literature, I actually am a law student and I am writing a law review article that's pending publication for the United School of Law. In over 400 cases I canvassed, spanning the time of 1986 to 2014, involving altercations in prison with a transgender woman, not a single case involved a transgender woman perpetrating an act. In every single case, she was a victim. And as a matter of fact, there are at least 2 cases, if not 3 or more, that have been documented where cisgender female corrections officials molested, threatened, physically assaulted transgender women incarcerated in those facilities. And to say that women, cisgender women, are somehow especially at threat from transgender women is actually interesting, because the inmate-on-inmate victimization rate in women's prisons is 4 times higher than that in men's prisons. As a matter of fact, cisgender women are, actually I should reverse that, transgender women are 3.6 times more likely than cisgender women to be a victim of a violent crime or sexual assault in the general population. So I think it's pretty clear to say that transgender women are not the perpetrators, they are the victims in this legislation, and it's really trying to facilitate assault of transgender women. It's an anti-feminist bill, and they recommend this be marked inexpedient to legislate, and I'm willing to take any questions anybody has.
Very good. Talk fast. Yes, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Gammon, and thank you for taking my question. When does your article come out?
Oh, actually, it's in review within the editing stage. Should be by the middle of March.
Excellent. Look forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Jen Smith, you want- Dr. Jen Smith? She left, okay. Okay. You could ask, thank you. Nope, okay. Michael Haley? Welcome back, Michael. How you doing?
Well, thank you, Senator. How are you?
Good.
As you may already know, my name is Michael Haley. I'm from Derry, New Hampshire. I'm a staff attorney at GLBTQ Legal Advocates and Defenders. And I'm here to urge the committee to vote in expedient to legislate on this bill. I or someone else from my organization have been here testifying against these bills for several years now. And as has already been pointed out, They've been vetoed again and again. And I don't want to belabor the material that's already in my written testimony. I'm sure that the committee is completely able to read that and ask me questions if you have any. I did want to make just two minor points. First, I heard in earlier testimony concern about the impact of current law on religious organizations. And the New Hampshire statute for civil rights has many, many carve-outs that protect religious organizations from liability under those statutes. So RSA 354A18, 15.5, and 2.7 all exempt religious organizations from the civil rights laws that we already have on the books. So there really isn't a concern that a church or a mosque or a synagogue, if they wanted to classify people in this way, they are not subject to any liability under the statute. The other thing that I just wanted to point out, which has already been brought up, but it is related to the law, is this incident at Liberty Hotel in Boston that has been discussed. And I just brought from the court filings in that case the story that I think is worth hearing. This involved a case of a woman named Ashley Baker and her girlfriend Elizabeth Victor. They were at the hotel to watch a sporting event, and Ms. Baker went to use the restroom. And she was accompanied by her girlfriend. The girlfriend was waiting by the sink while Ms. Baker went into a stall, closed the stall, and almost immediately after that, a security guard came in, pounded on the stall door, demanded that she exit. In her own words, she said she pulled up her pants, opened the door, was confronted by this angry security guard shouting, "Get out, you can't be here," accused her of being male. She produced her driver's license, which shows that she's female, again, born female, non-transgender woman. She has a short haircut, but someone in the hotel had taken it upon themselves to decide that she was too masculine to be in the women's room. She was dragged out of the restroom in front of other patrons who were gawking and laughing at her. And she was kicked out of the hotel. And in her own words, she writes that she was left shocked, distraught, and sobbing outside the entrance. And so this is what happens when we decide that we want to start policing people's bodies who are just trying to use the restroom. We're not talking about people who are criminals, who are trying to do anything. Again, as has already been pointed out, we already have plenty of criminal laws that criminalize the things that we're concerned about. And I would invite the committee to consider strengthening those laws if that is the concern. But having someone simply try to use the bathroom puts everybody at risk when we start to try to police who is there. The only other point I'll point out about this lawsuit is that the hotel has already paid $10,000 towards this claim in front of the Massachusetts Commission on Human Rights, and they have another lawsuit pending regarding it. So this is going to cause trouble for businesses who are going to now open themselves up to this type of litigation, which we just simply don't need. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for taking my question. I appreciate the written testimony you provided. I know it's several federal cases from different circuits. Is there any case from the First Circuit that would be controlling in this district?
So not on the question of bathrooms specifically. On the questions of sports, you may be aware that a federal judge in New Hampshire has enjoined the sports law that the legislature passed in 2024. In doing so, the court found that it was highly likely that the plaintiffs will ultimately succeed on the basis that excluding transgender girls from women's sports violates Title IX and the Equal Protection Clause of the Constitution.
In that case, it was only an injunction that was issued, and I think the case kind of stayed at that point.
It's an injunction. The case is still ongoing.
So there's no final decision. But I think most of what you cited here, it's reached its highest level it's going to go. There's not a First Circuit Court of Appeals case on point yet. Thank you.
Quick question. As far as the sports go, if it was limited to high school, would you have less object? You mentioned that there's a case on point that they've ruled on federally. If we took the college sports out and left high school.
So these are high school girls that we're talking about who are part of this lawsuit. So I think college sports is a whole separate issue.
Yeah. Okay, I was just skimming ahead in your testimony. Okay, never mind. I'm good. Others, yes, Senator Reardon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for taking my question. The sites that you gave on The only one I wrote down was RSA
Oh.
354A15. Did you have more?
Oh, sorry for going kind of quickly there, Senator. Thank you for the question. It's RSA RSA 354-A18,
18.
354A15 Roman 5, and 354A2 Roman 7.
Roman 7. Good. Thank you very much.
Senator Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for taking my question. And just listening to the, both sides of the debate here, whether they support this legislation, they oppose it, the same issue is raised in the sense that people are concerned about safety. They're uncomfortable in bathrooms and locker rooms. So I'm not picking one side or saying it's justified. It's a perceived, it's a perception that they have. What do you say to the in a women's locker room to women who are uncomfortable or feel for their safety? It doesn't mean that the trans woman's doing anything wrong. But if both, it's feel like everyone's uncomfortable going to the bathroom. So I guess how do we balance that?
I think, thank you for the question. And I think that is an excellent point. I think that we are, that safety in restrooms and private spaces is extremely important. I think that the concerns about safety are being aggravated by a lot of misinformation, whether it's intentional or not. And I think that ultimately the way to address the safety concerns is not to categorically ban one group of people or others from the bathroom, but to look at what actually the concerns are. If we're worried about assaults happening, let's look at that and figure out how we reduce assaults. If we're worried about sexual exposure or something like that in the restrooms, let's look at how we fix that. This does not address that, and so it's not going to fix it.
Thank you.
Quick question. So if the state decides it's a compelling state interest for a woman to have privacy in a bathroom, a locker room, say, do you agree with that? That the state could have a compelling state interest and that they could, in limited circumstances, could decide it's all female locker room, all female bathroom?
I think that it certainly is a compelling state interest for women to feel safe in restrooms. I think that the other component of that, though, is that in order to satisfy equal protection requirements, you have to narrowly tailor your solution to fix that. And as I was just saying, this simply doesn't do that. We're not actually making anyone safer through this legislation.
Senator.
Thank you. For it to be a compelling state interest for the so-called protection of women in bathrooms, would you have to have some evidence that there was widespread danger for women in bathrooms?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, that's exactly the type of thing that a court would look for. They would look for evidence of, is it in fact the case that transgender women who are using the bathroom do damage the safety of the non-transgender women who are using the restroom. I will also just say that courts have addressed this from multiple angles. And one avenue that has been looked at is whether the right to safety in a private space includes the right to a space that is free of transgender people. And the courts that have looked at the question in that way have all said, no, there's not a right to be in a space that excludes transgender people. Certainly right to safety and privacy, no question there.
Yes, Senator Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I appreciate you've taken a lot of questions, and I can tell you're well versed in this area of law, so I do appreciate that. In these cases and in some of your responses, is there a distinguishment between someone's biological sex as opposed to someone who's transitioning or?
So I think that when you do get into court cases and trying to look at the biological basis of sex, it is an extremely complicated issue. We all, are taught there's two genders, men and women, at an early age, but the more that scientists look at it, the more complicated that question is, and that's why the solutions to the issues that we're talking about require nuanced solutions and not categorical bans. So that's the case of sports, right? The sports that are at the elementary school level are not the same as the NCAA. Bowling is not the same as darts, is not the same as football. So when we look at all these different types of sports, and we do want to make sure that safety and fairness, I certainly don't dispute that safety and fairness in sports, for example, are important interests. But what we need to do is to tailor our solutions to meet that interest, and categorical bans are not tailored.
Yep.
And the point I'm getting at, if this, let's say this doesn't pass and that means that a trans woman, they could use the women's room, correct? But what if they would have then used the men's room? I'm just saying, at that point, how are we distinguishing the bathrooms? I'm just saying, if there is gonna be a policy on the books, because it feels like someone could use both, and what are we gonna say?
So I would say, thank you for the question. Right now, we don't have a statute on the books that says who uses what bathroom. And apart from the fact that I understand some people are uncomfortable and are dealing with social changes that are difficult, we don't have widespread, abuse by transgender people, of cisgender people in restrooms. So I think that we don't have a law right now that dictates that, and I don't think that we need one. I think that understanding that there are comfort issues and all that, and recognizing that and not diminishing it in any way, we're kind of getting along fine without drawing these lines, and certainly not having the state be the one to draw the lines.
Last question.
And I'm just, for a policy discussion, if I have a young daughter, she's 4 years old, if I want to take her to the bathroom, I certainly wouldn't take her in a men's locker room. If I went into the women's locker room, I'm not part of the LGBTQ plus community. I'm just asking, what's the reaction to that then? Or what's the policy consideration to address that?
To be totally honest, I don't know what the law says about that. And I mean, I'm sure that as a young child, my mother took me into the women's room to use the bathroom when I was 4, and nobody cared. And so I honestly don't know what the rule is around that. A lot of people might be made uncomfortable by that. Others might say, oh, you have a 4-year-old daughter who has to pee, that's fine. So, but again, I don't think that we need a statute to resolve that minor interaction.
But would a private business who says I'm now banned because I went into the women's locker room with my daughter, I violated their policy, would I have a cause of action against them? Because I'm looking at maybe that's discrimination against my daughter. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
What am I supposed to do, right?
yeah, I think that, again, these are nuanced issues that require nuanced solutions. And I think that in that situation, it would be totally acceptable to simply approach the business owner and say, look, I'm sorry, I have a 4-year-old daughter here. Is it all right if I bring her into the bathroom or go into that bathroom or whatever? And we don't need the state of New Hampshire legislating around that issue.
You don't always have that much time with a 4-year-old.
Fair enough.
I appreciate the point you made. Thank you.
Very good. Senator Alschler.
Thank you, Chairman Gannon, and thank you for taking my question. So in listening to some of the testimony and reading through yours, what I'm hearing and I'm struck by is that there seems to be a deep concern for privacy in a women's restroom. No one's talking about the men's rooms at all. I'm hearing that there are some women who are fearful of sharing space with men. And if we were to look at statistically who does the bulk of sexual assaulting, it's men. Like, just true fact. So is some of this, are you seeing from where you're sitting, some of this based on fear and misunderstanding of what it means to be a transgender woman or a transgender man? And so without that education gap being filled, there's a broad brush painted on people that some may misunderstand.
Thank you for the question, and I think that is a really sensitive and important point. And I think that a lot of this would be resolved by people just simply getting to know some transgender people and seeing that they are not a threat to being in the same bathroom.
Quick question from me. So we're back to, I don't see the physical safety threat as a big issue to me. I have coached tons of women. I have 3 women daughters. They do 3 sports a year, high school, college. I do look at their privacy right, though, as a compelling state interest, which you don't think will rise to. You don't think it's going to be tailored narrowly enough, where I might disagree with you on that, but that would be your concern. Again, I'll drop the safety issue. Just go as a woman's privacy right to have her privacy to do whatever in the bathroom without males. You don't think that would rise to being narrowly tailored? Is your problem with that?
Yes, I think that's correct. I think that the privacy right is certainly a compelling state interest. but that the only courts who look at that specific issue have found that the solution of banning transgender people from that space, there's not a compelling interest in having a transgender person-free space.
Okay, thank you. You're free. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you again.
Elmi, I'm gonna blow your last name, Terravecchia? Is it Italian? I'm watching the Olympics. I haven't picked that one up yet.
Hello, it's Amy Terravecchia.
Terravecchia, okay,
It is Italian, so
thank you.
yes. I'll keep my remarks brief, but I'm here to testify in opposition to SB 552. My name's Amy Terravecchia. I'm from 603 Equality. I want to echo what some of the others who have testified in opposition have already said, that this is, in my opinion, a discriminatory policy that unfairly targets the trans community. I also think that there are serious enforcement concerns, as we've seen that Governor Ayotte just vetoed SB 268. But I also want to share my personal experience as a cis woman. I have the privilege of having been born into a body that aligns with my gender identity, and yet that has not prevented me from being misgendered multiple times throughout my life. A policy like this would actually cause additional privacy and safety concerns for me in a public restroom or in a locker room. So I'd like to raise that issue with the committee and make sure that you are all aware of that. As you probably noticed, as I approached the microphone, I'm a relatively tall woman. I have broad shoulders. I've had my hair at various lengths throughout my life. I've dressed in various ways throughout my life. And because of that, sometimes folks have assumed that I am trans. I am not trans. So having a policy which invites strangers to question my gender and question my biology is very, very concerning to me. I'm happy to take any questions you may have, but I do urge you to rule this ITL.
I have tall daughters. How tall are you?
I am 5'10" without heels.
Oh, okay. Yep. No, I got taller, 5'11". So. Questions? Thank you for coming today. I appreciate your testimony. Sarah Smith. Good afternoon, Sarah. How you doing?
Good morning, or afternoon, yes. Senators, thank you for taking my testimony. I am hard of hearing, so if you have questions, I hope you will speak closer to the mic. I rise in opposition to this bill because well, part of my background, I was a special education teacher with a master's. So I've learned quite a bit about discrimination over those years. And I'm not a lawyer, though, but I have felt that the idea of discriminating against a person as opposed to an action is what concerns me with this bill. You know, there are people who need to use the restroom. They go in there, they use the restroom. That's fine. But of course, the thing that's illegal is if they go in and they harass someone or attack someone. That is what is illegal, not the person who's there, but their actions. That's my simplified version of what this concerns me here. I have been in a restroom where there was somebody suspected that there was a transgender person in there, went out, and then they sent in a guy to check it out. He looked like he was a maintenance guy. He was kind of creepy looking, and that bothered me. That bothered me that this kind of thing would happen. It seems to me that this kind of solution is worse than the actual problem. So that's one thing that concerns me here, and I think it goes for. I want to say one other thing too about thing that concerns me in terms of you know, all of these actions, like you know, putting someone in prison and having them have to go in the section with their biological sex, and they they don't have the characteristics of that anymore. They've transitioned, and so that's a really scary thing for a lot of people. And I know transgender people who are really terrified of that, because you're putting them in with a lot of criminals and violent people, and they're likely to be assaulted there. So those are my observations here. Yeah. The other thing I'd like to say is that this we're kind of an anomaly here in New Hampshire, in the New England states, to be pursuing this kind of rules, and I don't think it really bodes well for people coming into the state who know that there's going to be discrimination against them in facilities. They may want to go skiing and they can't use the locker room, or maybe their friends are transgender. All of a sudden, there's a whole group of people who don't want to come because one of their friends will be discriminated against. You know, we've already seen the Canadians drop 30% of their participation in New Hampshire. And now we're going to put out another flag that says, you know, other people are not welcome here. So I think we really need to think carefully about this policy. It's not a good look for New Hampshire. Any questions?
We're all set. Thank you very much for your testimony. Pasha Roberts. Good
Hello,
afternoon,
everybody.
Mr. Roberts.
Yeah, thank you for having us here. And
Thanks for coming.
so, honorable members of the Judiciary Committee, I'm Pasha Roberts. I live in Wilmette, New Hampshire, and I'm on the board of 603 Equality, and I am speaking in opposition to SB 552. Last year, I testified to remind you that there is no real definition of biological sex in this bill. Any first-year medical student understands the existence of people like myself, who are intersex, physically born not exactly male or female. What bathroom do I go to? I mean, this is just biology. This is physicality before you even get into the age-old reality of people being transgender. I could also note the incredible pain that this bill will cause to people who are transgender or intersex. Others have gotten into that. And I think both of these should matter to the committee, but I'm going to get to something much simpler. The governor has vetoed this bill twice, 3 times. Actually, if you go to the prior governor, she vetoed it because it's unenforceable. And she's right. It adds legal teeth to the moral panic around gender. We've heard all about that. It leads to harassment, security incidents, and lawsuits. Not knowing how to enforce this, it leads to invasive genital inspections by school nurses and mall cops. I don't want a mall cop inspecting my pants. This has already happened in other states. There's no way to prove that you're male or female in this law. Non-trans women are already under this microscope. Your mother, your sister, your niece, your daughters are not exempt. I was going to go through the incident at Liberty Hotel. Short-haired cis woman, security banging on the door of the stall while she was urinating. So that was settled for $10,000 and a lot of other issues. This bill is unenforceable. It's not free. It's against liberty. It's against personal responsibility, the party of small government. The governor knows all of this and will veto it again. So let's save the effort, declare this ITL. She'll veto this. Thank you. And I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Seeing none, we're all set. Thank you. Nancy Brennan.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Nancy Brennan. I live in Ware. I would like to say that the so-called trans threat is what we call a straw man. No statistics support it. Statistics do, however, show that transgender people are 4 times as likely to be accosted and harassed as cisgender people, and that trans people are much more prone to depression and self-harm when they are treated with hate and dismissed as fakes. Stories of cis women faring trans women in the bathroom have become amplified so that one story is told and retold and put on social media, and it seems like it's happening everywhere, and it just isn't true. But fear is a powerful emotion. I would not belittle anyone's experience, like the coach who spoke earlier. But in this case, the fear is misplaced. For one thing, only 1 out of 100 people are transgender. So the probability, and I'm a retired math teacher, the probability that you're going to run into a transgender person in a bathroom is minuscule. Ignorance then feeds that fear. We have a president who has declared that there are only 2 sexes. That doesn't make it true, but it helps us buy into that. If we are willing to dig deeper and learn that every major medical and psychological professional association says, yes, transgender people are real. And if we look through history, we will see that the trans people have been with us throughout history and across all cultures. When we accuse men of dressing like women in order to attack females, we miss the point. 1 in 5 women experience rape or attempted rape in their lifetime. 4 in 5 experience sexual harassment. 95 to 97% of violence against women is perpetrated by men, cisgender men, not transgender women. We have failed as a country to protect females, not from transgender women who are themselves victims, but from predatory men. We have a president convicted of sexual abuse, and he's still president. We have ignored the voices of so many girls that have come out of those Epstein files that we're still reading and cringing about. We have stories of coaches and clergy, and now we learn that there are men, predatory men, who do not belong to ICE, but dress as ICE and kidnap and hurt women. None of these perpetrators are transgender. Let's put our effort where it belongs, holding predatory men accountable, not putting the blame on a small, vulnerable group who are only asking us to allot them dignity and respect their humanity. Thank you. Sure.
Thanks for taking my question. Again, my tact is not this physical safety aspect. Over and over again, the women I meet, the women I have coached, the women on my sports teams of my daughters in college and high school, mostly want a privacy issue. Now, you said there's 1% approximately trans women out of 100. So if the vast majority or a large segment of women are mostly concerned with privacy issues in bathrooms and locker rooms, it's not the fear factor of the physical safety, it's their privacy. Do you not think they're entitled to privacy from men or trans in the locker rooms?
I think everybody is entitled to privacy. But I think when we single out a group, we say your privacy is not important. And you know, the reason I talked about the fear and how it is, I think you and I were thinking along the same lines, how the fear is a misunderstanding. You know, if I had I have daughters, but if one of them had come home and said, Mom, remember Chris from first grade? Now he's Christine. Then I would hopefully tell my daughter, this is what is true. There are some people, most of your friends that were little boys in kindergarten are always going, and most of your friends that were little girls, but once in a while, there's somebody like your friend whose body and who they know they are, and doesn't make them scary. I think education is the key. And I think when we use the term privacy, you know, I want privacy too. And the funny thing is, I'm 77. I've traveled all over this country and 2 other countries. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a locker room or bathroom with a transgender person because I don't pay attention. If I did have a man, I mean a cisgender man, come up to me and say, and I knew he was pretending, I'd turn him in. I belonged for a while to a gym. My daughter belonged to a gym in Chicago, a beautiful, fabulous gym with 3 pools and all that. And she would bring me as a guest when I went to visit her. And there was a woman who was so obnoxious. She was big. She was big, and she would come right up and get in your face. Now, I think she was a cisgender woman. I don't care. But she annoyed the hell out of me. So whenever I found her a little, because she was taller than me and bigger than me. I always made sure I went into one of the spaces with a curtain because I didn't want to deal with this woman with her in my face. So, I think there's all kinds of privacy. And I think, and I am not criticizing anybody because, as I say, people have trauma. They come with trauma. But I also think sometimes that term privacy is used to go after people who are transgender. And we see it. We see it when people come here and testify and say, I refuse to call that representative who she is. And I think that's very harmful.
Will you take one more question?
I will talk forever.
There.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for taking my question. Now, there's really, in this bill, 3 distinct issues, all right? You have the bathroom issue, sports, and then you have the
Prisons, yeah.
I understand the concerns on both sides about bathrooms. What about your thought on discrimination when it comes to sports?
Well, usually when I come to these, they say 2 minutes. And so I chose to just choose bathrooms because, let's face it, it's where most of us, hopefully not too many of us are going to prison. So it's the one that I tended to focus on because I think it affects the most people. I have just read a study, and I didn't bring it. I usually come with all kinds of footnotes, which I don't know if you guys ever read. But a new study has come out showing that transgender women who have transitioned do not have an advantage. And, Senator Gannon, you and I have had this conversation before, because our upbringing, the age we have, we say, well, that can't be right. But we don't want to believe it. But the latest study has showed that it's true. Now, I am not talking about a 35-year-old man who has never transitioned and now has decided and has nothing, still has the same. But I think that gets taken care of with college and professional sports when there is the testing, the testosterone, because as you know, there are women with naturally high levels of testosterone, and in certain sports, in the Olympics, they have to bring that down. There was a woman, I want to say she was from Poland, who in the 1980s won a race, and then the next time she was in the Olympics, they were doing the testing. And when they tested her, they found out she was XY. She had no idea, so she couldn't compete. So she went home and took care of the babies that she had had naturally. So I think we need to be careful and we need to have the rules. Prison is it's a problem unto itself. I listened to what was said about the amount of abuse that happens in prisons, but we do know that prisons are abusive places for everybody, that men rape other men, women rape other women, guards rape everybody, depending on the prison. So I can't imagine a woman who is fully transitioned being put in a men's prison.
Thank you for your testimony today. Appreciate it.
Sorry if I rambled.
No, you did great. Allison Turcotte, you got a pose, but it didn't check off speaking or not. Come on down. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thanks for speaking.
I just have to talk about myself. I was 230 pounds. My brother used to call me Bear. I'd pick up anything I'd like to pick up. I transitioned. I am 160 pounds. All my muscle left. So my weight will change like a woman. It'd be fat. I used to be able to pick up 2 bags of pellets, wood pellets. I got troubles picking one up. I was in the store buying something very, very hard, picking them up, put them in the carriage. I don't know why, if anybody is actually transitioning on HRT, hormones, you lose your muscles. You become even. And that's about all. I just wanted to bring that up. Any questions?
See you none. Thank you. Thanks for coming in today.
Thank you.
Doug Marino. Oh, you don't want to not speak. Okay. Jay Hawkins. Come on down. Sorry to keep you all this time.
No, you're fine. Thank you to the chairman of the committee. If it's okay with you, I'd like to turn in this testimony.
That'll be great.
Speak on my own behalf.
Thank you.
Not reading, we like that.
Even though half the time when we go up, we read, but that's okay.
Hi, I'm Jay. I live in Concord. I had planned to give the testimony of a parent with children. I'm your exception is the rule. I am a non-binary person technically. I look female to most people, but I am that person that gets kicked out of bathrooms. I wish it had happened once. I wish it happened twice. But that's not how it works. I like to wear hats in public. I can't quite often. My hair is quite short. It doesn't matter that I'm large-chested. I'm the person that gets removed from bathrooms. It's happened in every state I've gone to. I'm from Tennessee originally. I've lived in Connecticut. I've lived here. I've lived multiple places. I am that person that gets removed from bathrooms. It's not because I do anything. I don't go to a locker room to look at people. I go to a locker room to change clothes and take a shower. I don't go to the bathroom to look at people or attack someone or hurt someone. I go to the bathroom to pee. I've taken my son to the bathroom before. I took him to the women's room. I announced that I was bringing a boy into the bathroom. I've done the same thing for my nieces. I'm that person that gets hurt. I'm the person that everybody thinks is a man, is a tranny, whatever word you'd like to use. I'm that person. I'm who you're hurting. When I got my COVID vaccine, I was removed from the casino that I had to go to get it because a woman decided that I was a man that wanted to hurt her. I'd already used the bathroom. I was washing my hands, and they sent in a man, as they always do, to escort me out of the facility. I'm banned from that facility because I went to get my COVID vaccine. I had to pee. It happens so often. It's embarrassing to be 40 and need my fiance to go to the bathroom with me so people won't think I'm a freak, think that I'm there for them. You're hurting me. Yes, you're hurting my community. Yes, you're hurting children. Yes, there are a lot of people at play, but I'm the weirdo. I'm who gets removed. If you'd like to know what it's like to get removed, I'd be more than happy to tell you. This is what it looks like. This person. It doesn't always look like a trans person. It doesn't always look like a cisgender person. I'm just boring. I wear what clothes I like. I like to wear a hat, but I can't. This is what it looks like. I'm happy to take any questions you have, whether that's experience or whatever you may have, but I wanted you to see what it looks like. It's happened a lot. It doesn't matter if I'm on vacation. It doesn't matter if I'm a road trip. It doesn't matter if I live there. I got removed during jury duty in Connecticut because someone decided I was a man. It happens a lot. And I just wanted you to see what we look like. I look like you.
Very good. Thank you for your testimony. Thanks for coming in today. Appreciate it. Does anyone else wish to speak on 552 who didn't get a chance? Or do we have another sign-up sheet? Because I haven't missed that one. But that's fine. We'll just, Miss in the front. Oh, we do. Okay, I'm sorry. But you come anyways, come anyways. I grabbed you. That's okay. Those are your
You can
rights.
check me off the list then.
And what is it? I'm
I
sorry.
am Zoe Hill. I live in Lebanon. And I oppose this.
One second.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
I am Zoe Hill. I live in Lebanon. I oppose this bill. And I would say ditto to everybody else who has spoken in opposition today. But I just want to say, mostly I oppose this bill because it is completely unnecessary that this bill was even filed in the first place. It is a distraction from the truth, from the things that Granite Staters truly care about. People in New Hampshire are not concerned about what happens when they go to the bathroom. People are concerned about their property taxes. This bill and every other one like it is a disservice to the people of New Hampshire. And that is all.
Thank
I
you,
have to
Zoe.
say.
Thank you. Very good. Thanks for your testimony today. Appreciate you coming in. Claire Abernathy.
Hello.
Hello.
Give me just a second.
So if you can try not to read, we'll read any testimony. So
Yeah.
the more you can talk to us, the better. Thank you.
Thank you for letting me speak today. My name is Claire Abernathy, and I used to be transgender. Between the ages of 12 and 17, I socially and medically transitioned to a boy. And during that time, I almost exclusively used men's restrooms and locker rooms. I experienced multiple sexual and physical assaults during that time. I had my face smashed into a bathroom mirror in my boys' high school restroom when I was 14 years old. When I was 15, a boy in the locker room put his hand down the front of my underwear and told me he would kill me if I ever told anyone. This is two of many examples. And this is not an isolated experience. Of the cases I'm aware of a trans-identified person being assaulted in a private space, it is nearly exclusively in the space that they would identify with. I was the so-called trans kid that the opposition to this bill is telling you to protect. A bill like this would have allowed my school to protect me from the experiences that I went through. There is, as far as I'm aware, no research that says that people who identify as trans are safer in the restrooms of the opposite sex. There is, however, reason to believe that allowing males into female intimate spaces makes women materially less safe. Forrest Rom, a friend of mine, published an article in The Hill earlier this year documenting the experiences of women incarcerated at MCI Framingham, Massachusetts' only women's correctional institute. where men who have been convicted of child rape, serial sex offenses, and the murder of female intimate partners are being housed with vulnerable women. These women have habitually been punished for reporting the assaults committed against them by these men. Every single one of the women she interviewed requested anonymity in fear of retaliation from prison officials for speaking out against the assaults that have been committed. There have been similar reports in women's spaces across the country. Women are abused by trans-identified men and punished for speaking out about it. Just last month, a California woman reported a video of a man masturbating in a Planet Fitness women's restroom. He faced no repercussions for his actions, his voyeurism, and she was banned from all Planet Fitness locations across the country for violating their policy against phones in restrooms. This bill would allow public and private institutions across your state to protect constituents from real material harm. I urge you to pass this bill, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, my name is Representative Catherine Prudhomme O'Brien, and I'm from Derry. And I have a lot to say about all of these issues. I am concerned about bathroom. I'm gonna just go point by point. Bathroom, sports, prisons. I am concerned about locker rooms. Okay. I am concerned about bathrooms. A few terms ago, we had to share a bathroom with a trans-identified man. I didn't say anything. I just got through it, okay? I knew there was something pretty wrong with this man. I could sense it. And then he was convicted recently because he encouraged his girlfriend to take pictures of toddlers at the, sexually explicit pictures of toddlers at the daycare where the girlfriend was employed. Okay, that's not right. I'm sick of doing that, and I avoid using the bathroom at the State House. Do I want Representative Ward to use the men's room? Yeah, that'd be fine. I would prefer if Representative Ward used the men's room or a private space, a third option. Yes, I would. Okay, I've been around the block a few times. I know what I'm talking about. Sports, obviously, there is a difference between men and women and their abilities, their physical abilities. I spent 3 years of my life as the only female in my class at a vocational high school. I was not just the only female in my class, I was the only female in the entire wing. I had to go to a different wing of the high school to get to the ladies' room, and I was encouraged to just go ahead and use the men's room sometimes, and I said, no way. I'd already dealt with enough harassment just in class. I wasn't going to touch it. I'm not going to blur any lines. I took the extra time to use to use the ladies' room always, every single time. And when working in business, same thing. I would not use the men's room at a machine shop ever, never. I would use my own space. I'm losing my train of thought because this is pretty emotional. Women definitely have different abilities and strength, and I saw that every day on the job because I had to use different tools to adjust machinery, to make things tight enough for them to be safe so the pieces of metal wouldn't go flying off the machine and kill someone, which is literally what can happen. Prisons. I've never been to prison, okay? But as a teenager, one of the reasons I decided at the age of 13 to learn a trade is because I saw the writing on the wall that I was about to go into foster care. And I did go into foster care. I went into a group home that was all female when I arrived. And one of the things and I have a hard time with these terms because I didn't see this person as a parent, but one of the first things the foster parent told me was that the state of Massachusetts was encouraging her to take in males. And I looked at the sleeping arrangement that I had, which was technically a bedroom, legally, I suppose, but it was the front porch of the house. And that meant that people from the house could access my sleeping area at any time. People from the street couldn't, that was locked, but the way the door was, people from the house could. She told me she was getting so much pressure that she was going to do it, but she was concerned about it and she didn't like doing it because the boys hit on the girls in the middle of the night when the girls don't want it. You tell me what that sounds like. It sounds to me like sexual abuse. Sexual assault is and can you imagine why, why do teenage girls find themselves in foster care? Why? A lot of times it's because they're sexually assaulted. Okay, I am couching everything that I say a little, I'm trying to say things to preserve the privacy of other people that I went through this unfortunate journey with. So I don't tell every aspect of my story publicly, but I will tell that one. Because when that happened, that place was the last ditch effort for me to go to. There were no other homes for me in that community. People just, arrangements for, 15-year-olds are not easy to find. What I did for the next 3 years was I thought about like bridges I could live under. I thought about areas of the woods where I could live and still attend high school. Like I could still graduate from high school and get on with my life. Instead, I went back to a different living arrangement that I had previously, where I could arrange the furniture in such a way that the door was unable to be opened when I was sleeping. Which is, that was just my whole childhood. And I just look back on that and I think that was insane that I had to put up with that. Insane. And why would we do that to women in prison? Why? Why are we doing that? They have a lot of things on their plate. They're trying to get their lives in order. I've never been arrested. I've never been in trouble with the law. Don't dismiss women in prison, okay, because they've had some bad decisions that they've made. Don't dismiss it. Let them get better. Don't give them this. Don't put them in a position where they have to think about how they're going to keep themselves safe, or maybe they won't be kept safe. Listen, I got a study I want to share with you. You're not going to like it. People on certain sides who've made up their mind on this already. When the Parliament of the United Kingdom was studying this issue of putting trans people in prison and whether or not they were going to separate them or not because there were so many assaults going on, they commissioned a study. And the professors on that study, you can look it up, would be Rosa Friedman, Kathleen Stock, and Alice Sullivan. This is from 2021. Statistics I really wanted to share with you that we should be paying close attention to are the rates of sex offenders within certain populations, okay? Men in prison, the rates of sex offenders, just men, general population, 16.8%. Women in prison, general population, 3.3%. Men who identify as women, the percentage of them as sex offenders is 58.9%. There is something going on, and there is something that we should pay attention to. And I would like to live in a society where I can tell the truth about what I see in front of me when I see it. I don't want to go through a situation where I have to put up with Representative Lawton in the bathroom when I know there's something wrong with the man. All right, a former representative. We all know that man. And I did know somebody who started a woman who started taking testosterone. I could hear it in the voice within about a week. Okay, I can tell, and we can tell when people are not female. We can tell by looking at them. We can tell by the gait. We can tell by the jaw. We can tell by the voice. We can tell by the shoulders. It is really important for women to stay safe in our society to be able to determine those things. And I feel like we're going backwards there. Okay, for women to be safe and to avoid being sexually assaulted, they have to know when they're in the presence of a man and when they're not. And I feel like I'm being gaslit when people are saying, oh, you can never tell. That's not true. mean, there are probably times when I can't tell. That's probably true that there are times, but most of the time I can. I would, anybody could test me and say, am I not? I think I'd do pretty well with it because I'm so sensitive to that issue because I've had to stay safe for so long. That was my entire life. That's what I had to do. Thank you. Any questions? I know I'm pretty upset. This is like a really emotional thing. I don't talk about this stuff every day. Yeah.
Lauren Cole Johnson. In the meantime, I didn't say Lyndon Johnson, but I like that. Simone Price. We're gonna, just in the interest, I have another bill, which will be also long. So if you can just keep it to 3 minutes.
Absolutely.
Try not to read. I know you know your stuff. Just tell me why you're here.
Good afternoon. My name is Simon Amaya Price, and I used to be trans. The bill at hand permits the classification of citizens by sex for purposes of bathrooms, locker rooms, athletic, and prison access. This bill does not mandate such classification. If a citizen takes issue with a certain business's or public accommodations decision to segregate their bathrooms by sex, that citizen can participate in the free market by choosing to bring their business elsewhere or start their own. This bill, contrary to the narrative pushed by the opposition, in fact, maximizes freedom. It grants business owners and athletic organizations the ability to run things how they see fit. This bill does not diminish the rights of any group of people unless you would like to make the argument that men have a right to women's spaces. This bill and bills like it are supported by most Americans and by most Democrats, according to various polls, including by CNN. I have friends who are lifelong Democrats who support this bill but are afraid to speak up on it out of the fear of threats to their safety, such as those I and other desisters and detransitioners receive because we dare to speak up. Some of those who oppose this bill will claim that mandating trans women, that is to say men, are allowed to enter women's spaces as suicide prevention. That is a lie. As a teen, I believed that I was really a girl inside and that either I was going to transition or I was going to die. This was a narrative pushed upon me by activists such as those you see here today. Now let me address the safety issue here by stating an uncomfortable fact. Men who say they are women commit sexual assault at far higher rates than normal men. In 2017, a transgender identified man was convicted of sexually assaulting a 10-year-old girl in a bathroom. The transgender identified male boxer Fallon Fox said, and I quote, "For the record, I knocked 2 out. One woman's skull was fractured, the other not, and just so you know, I enjoyed it. See, I love smacking up turfs in the cage," end quote. 1 in 1,000 men are sex offenders in federal prison, whereas it is about 1 in 1,000 for men who say they are women. When compared to a woman, a trans-identified man is about 60 times as likely to sexually assault a woman than a real woman. This doesn't surprise me at all. It takes a good helping of either naivete or misogyny to believe that womanhood is a costume. To those who compare the bill at hand to Jim Crow, as we have heard, I ask you to consider the following. If I came in wearing blackface and said that I would kill myself if you did not affirm my blackness, you would think that I am crazy and that I am racist. But if I did the same with woman face, you would call me brave. Lastly, as my good friend Democratic Representative Jonah Wheeler said in his now famous speech to the House floor, the consent of one does not stand for the consent of another. Happy to answer any and all questions. Thank you very much.
Seeing no questions, thank you for your testimony. Appreciate it. Shannon McGinley.
Good afternoon, members of the Senate Judiciary Committee. My name is Shannon McGinley. I'm the Executive Director of Cornerstone Action here in New Hampshire. We're a voice for Christians in Concord as well as the courts. It was mentioned earlier about the number of bills that have already gone through this legislature over the past couple of years that sort of address the underlying issues that are in this bill. Some of those bills have gone to the governor and have been vetoed by 2 different governors. I think it's worth noting that each time that the governor vetoes one of these bills, that it receives more public attention. The most recent veto generated significant coverage, with the headlines noting that the governor vetoed a bill that would have allowed biological sex separation in locker rooms, prisons, and bathrooms. It was mentioned previously about the polling on this issue. It's overwhelmingly in favor of allowing sex-based distinctions. The primary reason that these vetoes have not yet carried political consequence is that many people are simply not aware of them. New Hampshire has limited media coverage and limited civic engagement, but that changes with repetition. Each veto creates a clear public record and brings this issue further into the democratic process. SB 552, as introduced, which simply clarifies that using biological sex is allowed, again, that it's allowed, was already so moderate that even 10 years ago, it would have sounded almost like satire that rather than a serious legislative dispute. Senator Avard's bill is, in our view, the most legally sound of the biological sex bills before the legislature this term. It is carefully drafted as an allowance bill, not a mandate. Yet repeated vetoes of even this narrow and restrained approach effectively amount to forcing the integration of intimate spaces based on gender identity. That position is increasingly out of step with the majority of the public. The more often it's repeated, the clearer and more unpopular it becomes. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
We are all set, Shannon. Thank you
Great,
very
thank
much.
you.
Good to see you.
I'm going to hand in my written testimony here.
Thank you. Amanda Azadi. Azad? No, it's just Azad.
I know this has been a long hearing, so I am going to be very brief and I'll hold any questions until the next hearing, which is on a similar bill.
Sure.
Also, I'm a very sleep-deprived mom of an infant, toddler, and preschooler, so I'm going to read, and I apologize for that.
Congratulations and sympathies for the work.
Dear committee, my name is Amanda Azad. I'm the policy director for the ACLU of New Hampshire. We have testified against many bills just like this one that was just vetoed on Friday, one that was vetoed last summer, and one that was vetoed the year before that. And then there is a hearing again right after this one on a similar bill, and then there will be 4 more bill hearings, and then after crossover, we will have another 6 more bill hearings. This is really just excessive, and it's putting this community through, frankly, too much. All of these bills target transgender and gender nonconforming people in public places. It feels like we are just throwing anti-trans things against the wall and seeing what sticks. Why would we be targeting one group over and over and over again in a way that harms all of us? Why would we be encouraging hateful acts by rolling back discrimination protections and fueling the inspection of people's bodies? Is this the reputation New Hampshire wants? No. These bills are exhausting and discriminatory and excessive and extreme. There are literally 6 different bills this session, not to mention the retained one that was just vetoed on Friday. They are all so similar. Some even seem like a copy and paste situation. This is extreme and over the top. I will end my testimony here as I plan to testify in the next hearing. Thank you so much for your time. Please ITL this one and the other 5. Thank you.
If you want to speak, you didn't check yes or no. He turned it off on me. Roanne? You probably left. You left by 2. Oh, you left me a little note here. David Trumbull?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members. My name is David Trumbull. I'm from the town of Ware. I oppose this bill. First of all, the law serves to educate. In this issue, we are either going to educate our society that trans women are women or that they are abominations and presumed predators. As you hear the testimony, those are the two basic theories that we go on. I think once we learn to respect trans people, we will stop having fear issues about trans people. Let's look at some of these issues. Nobody's really talked about mental health facilities, so I'll go there. I used to practice mental health law, represented several hundred people in the system. One of the points to start with is that its acceptance by individuals and policy is the key to mental health. The issue is not that being trans is a mental illness, it's that our approach to trans people is what causes them to have issues. This bill would permit the state to basically treat a trans woman as a man. That would be counter to their treatment. In New Hampshire statute, it's RSA 135C, 56 and 57 under fundamental rights. No person receiving mental health shall be discriminated against in any manner because of, and it includes sex, gender identity, and sexual orientation, and they shall be treated with dignity and respect. Then the next is their service plan. They have to give consent before administration of treatment and treatment in the least restrictive alternative. If you force a transgender woman to receive treatment as a man, that is the opposite of good treatment. That would be mistreatment. It would be abuse. It would not help them with any mental health issues. That whole section of the bill, I think, should be completely removed. On the bathroom issue, you've heard a lot about how it's not enforceable. I would add a couple other thoughts for your consideration. First is that the bill would interfere with the First Amendment, free speech, and freedom of assembly and association rights of trans people. How will trans people be able to go to public places like courts, town halls, school boards, and state houses if they can't use the bathroom without getting arrested just for using the bathroom? The second is discrimination in schools. If a child can't go to the bathroom that they identify with, they will not go to the bathroom for the whole day. That is not fair to a child, and the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals said that that's a special kind of discrimination against a child that he will no doubt carry with him for life. And third on bathrooms is you can't take away fundamental rights, use this compelling state interest test, unless you've adopted less restrictive alternatives first. The less restrictive alternative is obviously all gender restrooms in all public buildings. That should be made a matter of law before you would even consider a bill like this. We still have another bill on sports and prisons, so I will hold my testimony on those two subjects for the next bill, and I'd be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
This is a bulleted list. I'm not reading it. I'm not reading. Just very upfront about that. Totally. And I was more here for the next two, but I figured I would jump on these ones. So this will be quick. Thank you for letting me testify today. My name is April Landry. I'm an Auburn resident. I'm here representing myself. I moved to New Hampshire in 2021. My wife grew up here, up in the Lakes region. And we've been together over 20 years, and she's really convinced me to love this place a lot as a Massachusetts person. And ever since I got here, everyone has been incredibly friendly and welcoming, and honestly, until I got into this room. And there's a lot of people I'm very lucky that I didn't meet until today. I won't go too deep because you've already, when other people have testified, you've already asked them a lot of questions that were points that I would have brought up. But I do want to talk about the woman earlier who was at the gym who felt unsafe because there was someone in there. Feeling unsafe is very different from being unsafe. And trans people in bathrooms feel unsafe every day. So that's a big point. Yep. And you work through that because you're not actually unsafe, you know? I also want to call out in that situation, she went to the person that ran the place and brought it up and they chose not to do anything. So even if this bill passed, she would not have been able to work through that at that gym. Also, I just want to call out most testimonies today have completely disregarded trans men as a policy here. Everyone's talking about women and women's safety, and no one seems to care about men or, you know, that aspect of it or anything of that nature, which whether or not it's just worth calling out that a lot of the language here is just forgetting about half the people that you're writing this bill for.
And then last thing I would say is I use women's bathrooms almost exclusively, and when I don't, it's because it's a non-gendered bathroom at my house, or I've been to quite a few venues that have non-gendered bathrooms and where stalls and urinals and things are all together. And there haven't been issues with those things quite across the board. So I just oppose this as a whole. I'm open to questions, but obviously I'll be back up for the next two. So thank you.
No questions. Thank you. Anyone else wish to testify on 552 and get a chance? That one here.
Good afternoon. We'll now open the public hearing on Senate Bill 459. And this time the chair recognizes Senator Gannon to introduce the bill.
Thank you, Senator Evans. I am Senator Bill Gannon from the Wine District of New Hampshire. 12 beautiful towns from Sandown to Epping to the coast in Seabrook. How did I get here today? I read the governor's veto. I thought that was a good place to start. I read the governor's before veto. And I looked into what they would pass and what they wouldn't. And so that sort of influenced me not to. And it isn't that I'm pro or anti on the bathroom part. We won't deal with that today. I decided to work with the three areas that I believe are what the governor wanted in her veto, what she said she would pass. And I took those things out that she wouldn't pass. I look at this as a feminist bill. I have 3 daughters. I look at myself as a feminist. I do have a son also, but I want women's rights based on equality. I want them to have all the opportunities, advantages, no discrimination against men. So this bill deals with sports, it deals with locker rooms, and it deals with prisons. And again, we're not dealing with bathrooms for a numerous number of reasons. I did see the enforcement problems as have the other governors. I'm not necessarily for or against the other bill, but I felt that was a weakness and that would not get a bill signed this year. So I am someone who likes 3/4 of a loaf rather than none. So I want fair and equal competition in sports. I've been working on this bill more or less in different measures for it's either 6 to 8 years, but we've been trying to finally craft it correctly so it's acceptable. So when my daughters go out on a sports field, if it's someone who's a young person who's there was someone they had played on a boys soccer team the year before. About a year and a half ago, my daughter, who is in high school playing varsity sports, 3 sports a year, different sports, she's aware that, and we could see physically that this person was stronger, faster, almost 6 feet tall, just wasn't fair on the soccer field. It was a danger for her physically, and it just put the other person at an unfair advantage. So some sports has been brought up before, bowling or something, or darts, or there are things that, but a soccer field, there's fields that don't let themselves be safe for both sexes playing together. I want my daughters, as I have one, she's a senior, she does 3 sports a year. She's a varsity athlete at a college, and she developed in high school. Before that, she's always been a captain of a team. She's always got leadership abilities, and she's developed, if you saw her as a little girl, shy and quiet, and sports has been great for her, has allowed her to, it influenced where she went to college. Colleges were looking at her. Ivy Leagues, little Ivy Leagues, little Ivies. My younger daughter has the same thing. I would hate to have my daughter cut from a sports team or anyone else's daughter because a male athlete took her spot. So there are unintended consequences here. Again, we talked about leadership roles, unfair physical advantage, danger out on the field, and that's mostly what I look out on the sports field issue. Locker rooms, I look at as a different thing, and it's a public safety. We know who they are. You're going to have problems in a bathroom. You don't know who's there. I see the problems with the bathroom bill. We know who's on a sports team. We know their gender. We know they're biologically female or male. I did listen to the GLAD lawyer, and I will look more into the university part of the bill, maybe amend it, maybe not, but I will pursue that further. Again, women come to me, and I do hear this brought up a lot. They're like, why can't, this is a common sense thing to a lot of one side of the issue. They're uncomfortable when an individual of a different sex is in the locker room with them. And that's why we are including locker rooms here. Prisons, again, they speak themselves. The matron or warden is going to decide what's the best and safest route. So I'm not really going to go further there. And other than that, we've talked about a lot of the issues in the earlier bill. So I'll just leave it there.
Senator Altshuler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for taking my question. Do you believe that transgender girls are girls?
I don't think it's relevant what I think on that, but I don't think it's a relevant question what I think personally. I do think that girls have a privacy interest in a locker room. Women have a locker room privacy interest. I think there are differences between the sexes. I think women are entitled to a privacy interest. I think it's a fundamental right. I think the state then has a compelling state interest and it doesn't matter. The other people have talked more about a safety issue. I see it more as a privacy issue. That's how women address it to me. I don't really have women coming up to me and saying, I haven't encountered that very often. Like we had the woman who was the coach testify today. That hasn't been what I've run into. I'll run into people coming to me and saying, we want privacy. We're very uncomfortable with men in our bathroom and locker rooms. Again, I didn't include the bathroom part, but in the locker room, they're uncomfortable with their daughters being in a mixed company.
May I follow up? So I asked you this question because I'm looking at the bill and and on line 9 of the bill, you actually have put out based on the biological sex at birth. And we've heard testimony.
I'm sorry, I do have an amendment. It didn't get to you, which was supposed to get to you today.
Is it 0003S?
Yes.
Okay, so we do have it. It was
Okay.
it was in my folder. Did
Okay,
you
I
get
didn't
it?
know.
Here it is. Right here.
It was he probably hasn't seen
It's
it.
just under your collection.
It's right in front of me.
All right, so we did get it. Thank you.
Yeah, I did it that way because of court rulings. Worded this way, I think it is less susceptible to being thrown out on the advice of many counsel.
Okay, so
that was done purposefully, the change to, biological sex. Just like in the most part, you've heard it said, was it in Congress where someone's was being cross-examined. They said, do you know what a man is and a woman? You're aware of that one? Last year. It doesn't matter. Go ahead with your question.
But
Just
okay.
rephrase
So
up. Run
back
you
to
off.
your amendment then.
Yes.
Working from the intention of the amendment, which reads, and I'm just on line 3, for the purposes of this section, which would be inserted into section 1 of the original bill, for the purposes of this section, biological sex shall mean the male and female biological sexes. And I mean, we have heard, and someone who has testified to this is still in the room, that there are intersex people. So is it, I mean, why is there such an insistence on a very, very strict binary?
Again, my experience has been the women I talked to, even last night, I was out in a group setting. They brought up, what bills are you doing lately? And I said, well, tomorrow. And they would see this as a black and white issue that, yes, we know what women are and what men are. I believe I recognize. Again, I might be confused. That's why I didn't put the bathroom portion in. I don't know if on first glance at seeing someone in the bathroom, if I know their biological sex. A student in a school, they've it's in their record whether they're male or female. So I feel that when they're going on a sports team, had they been a female going to male, male going to female, it would be in their history at the school what sex they were. I do fear in the bathroom situation, you could run into problems like you brought up in Boston and things. I think there would be opening ourselves as a state to being more confused. I think if we limit it to sports fields, 2 locker rooms, and 2 prisons, I think we're in a safer route that can advance. I think the other bill is going to have the same problems it's had in the past. So I, again, read the veto messages of the past two governors. I feel that this meets that. I've had other people look at it who were in agreement that this would comply and should, if the governors stay on message to what they would live with. Their veto message, I believe, is, which may not be what you want, but I think it will be acceptable to them.
May I follow up?
You're recognized.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm not, just to be clear, not talking about bathrooms. That's not in this bill.
Yep.
I'm right there with you. So
Okay.
we don't have to talk about that.
Sure.
We just did for a long time. New topic, sports,
Sports.
which is the subject, the main subject of
Sure.
this bill, and what you have
And locker rooms.
and locker rooms. Getting to sports, which you just talked about.
Sure.
Right. You talked about fairness for your daughters.
For
Well, you brought your daughters
I
into
did.
it.
I'll bring my, I did.
Yeah.
I should
So-
never do that. They always get mad when I do, but I did. So yes, fairness to
So-
most, 99 is the other person previously testified. I think she was a gym teacher, special ed teacher. She testified 1%. So 99% of the women, I think, would be addressed with my bill.
So
Would be happy.
to achieve the fairness, though, that I think you're going for in the way you've described it, right? Shouldn't the fairness be based on a physical ability versus what you believe to be a characteristic? For instance, there are women who grew up playing soccer with Mia Hamm and Kim Little. And is it unfair that somebody didn't get on a team because they had extraordinary talent? Is there an inherent unfairness that some kids didn't make the swim team because Michael Phelps was on it and his wingspan, like we know, it's larger. And some people, Lance Armstrong, bigger heart. You know, there's reasons that some people excel, and it has nothing to do with their gender identity, but it does have to do with a physical, physicality that they bring to the sport. So if we're going to judge on fairness, should the fairness not be if sport is physical, it should be the physical?
With gender and opportunities for females. So you're going to, most men are biologically, it's like 40 to 50% stronger upper body, about 30% stronger lower body. So on average, with most people, this will cover 99% of the world, 98. Yes, it won't cover the 6'6" girl who can dunk the ball very easy. But I think this is the best we can do in the real world, is this, to make sure that women have the advantage, so they get the opportunities to be seen by have opportunities for scholarships, college coaches calling them, even just for the leadership quality. The shy girl who becomes the captain of the team could be cut by a boy who could take that role. So I don't want to see that happen. I want the females. That was Title IX. The whole idea of women's sports was to give them these opportunities. I think you'd be taking it away if you do it your way.
I'm
I thought
not
you
bringing
were,
anything
I
up,
thought
like
you were,
you're the
I thought you were suggesting that we do it a different way.
Well,
but you're not. Okay.
So just to follow up on what you just said, and you
Sure.
In your testimony, again, the losing a spot to a boy. Do you believe that transgender girls are girls and transgender women are women? Same on the other side of the coin. Transgender boys are boys and transgender men are men. That's, and to be clarifying, feminism is about equality for everybody.
I think
Everybody.
the results of not doing it this way would be taking away from a large number of women. I think if you did it your way, testing on ability alone, you'd be taking away advantages and opportunities from, I never used the word, but cis female, I guess.
All right, thank you.
Seeing no further questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Representative? You're up.
Really short.
Okay, I think you can assume, I am in favor of this, just as I was in favor of the previous bill. I think that it's unfair to take opportunities away from females. Not only that, but it is unsafe for females to participate in athletic events with males. If the males identify as female, that doesn't take away the fact that they were born male and have higher strength abilities based on that, and how their bodies have developed. It's different, and I think it's unfair to women. I think of, my own idea of what is feminism, which is something I had to think about constantly in high school, because every time I turned around, people would ask me if I was a feminist because I was, in that program where I was the only female. And it would be the writings of Susan B. Anthony that I think were very influential to me, that women should have the ability to be treated fairly and be able to take care of themselves. One of the things that she was a proponent of was that they be allowed to work in fields where they can take care of themselves and earn their own living, and that makes them safer because they can make their own decisions. But the truth remains that women are not as strong as men. I mean, if you ask any woman who has been sexually assaulted, she will tell you that's a big part of why that happened. So that's my idea of feminism. And I think that it is not incongruent with feminism to be in favor of this bill and to say that women should be competing with other women or females, the high school level. And I mean, if you want, I just read something, and I mean, really shocking case out of Washington. And if everything that this young woman is saying is true, this is unbelievable. So this happened in December in Puyallup, Washington, where she's a wrestler, and she's been a wrestler for a long time. And she was matched with someone who she later found out was transgender, and she said she was sexually assaulted in the middle of the match. She stopped the match by quitting and giving up and allowing herself to be pinned, and then told her mother immediately afterwards that I was sexually assaulted during that match. And right now that's going through the system. It's not been adjudicated yet. She's, just December, but that's amazing. And because of the difference in strength, she just gave up quickly, when it was happening. And for that to have happened in the middle of the gym with everybody watching, I mean, I've never heard of such a thing. That's just shocking. But she just being female does make you more vulnerable because you are not as strong as men.
Thank you, Representative. Sarah Terrell? Yeah. Sarah, have you gone? You've gone, I believe. Okay. Nancy Biederman? Beth, do you want to speak? Scar? Is she gone too? Okay, everyone's left us. Jennifer Smith, are you still here? You checked off both. Nope. This is going to be a quicker afternoon. Hazel Kane. Boy. Flying. Elmi with the nice Italian name that I don't want to butcher again. Caraccia. You're not that tall, I told her. My daughter's got an inch in here. She likes the height.
I do too, so I wear heels.
You got heels on, so you don't hate the height that much.
Yeah. Hello again. Again, I'm going to echo what you are likely to hear from others who oppose this bill, but my name is Amy Teravecchia. I'm with 603 Equality. I wanted to share my personal experience as well as someone who played sports to speak to the sports and locker room issue. There's a lot of conversation happening around the added advantages of someone who is born an assigned male at birth, of having strength over female athletes. And strength is not the only determining factor in someone's athletic ability. We see that going on in the Winter Games with Olympics right now. Different athletes in different fields can benefit from things like agility, from flexibility. Sometimes a smaller statue is better when you're looking at sports like gymnastics. And quite frankly, as Senator mentioned earlier too, your physical capabilities are not necessarily tied to your gender or your biology. They're tied to your physicality. So I don't think that there is an unfair advantage given to trans women in female sports. If you look at the statistics of how many trans women participate in sports, it's a very small percentage. And as you mentioned yourself, Chairman, that your daughters benefited greatly from participating in sports. I would hate to deprive young trans people the opportunity to also reap those benefits from participating in sports and building their abilities through teamwork and through sportsmanship. So thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. So also there's I guess a concern that transgender women will take away scholarships and opportunities for furthering their athletic careers, if you will. Are you aware of any transgender women or men in New Hampshire, since you're from 603 Equality, that have gained athletic scholarships?
I am not aware of any trans athletes who have gained athletic scholarships. I am aware of young trans athletes who have gained important skills that they've been able to carry through to other parts of their lives through being parts of team sports. And again, I'd hate to deprive those young people of those opportunities.
May I follow up?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's a case that has been moving through, and we heard from the mother of one of the athletes who was here on an earlier bill. And having testified before this committee and before the House before, we heard that this young athlete belongs to a soccer team, a high school soccer team that has, at least when they testified last time, had never won a game. But the girls really love playing together, but they're measured against other athletes. They're not really ranking. No one's taking anything from anybody in that space. So should that team improve or gain some different athletes, would it be fair to bump the transgender athlete off because now they're winning?
Absolutely not. In addition to formerly playing sports, my daughter also plays sports. And, lots of different things can affect a team's ability to win or lose at both individual games and over the course of a season. Sometimes that's coaching, sometimes that's the team dynamics. Sometimes that can come down to the weather. I remember a specific softball game where the sun was in our girls' eyes for, the first 3 quarters of the game, and that affected their ability to play. So there's lots of different variables. And I think that especially for young people in sports, the overall benefit of being able to work in community with one another, with being able to build and cultivate leadership skills, communication skills, teamwork, those are really valuable life skills. And those young athletes, whether they are cis or trans, should not be deprived of the ability to build that up with each other.
All set. Thank you very much for your testimony. Sarah Smith. Everybody gives up on us. Pasha, are you still here? I thought I saw your shirt in the distance, so
I try to wear bright colors so you know I'm here.
that's good. No, I like it.
So there's that. I'm going to diverge from it somewhat, just to follow your directive.
Thank you.
Honorable members, I'm Pasha Roberts. I live in Wilmette, New Hampshire. I'm on the board of 603 Equality, and I'm speaking in opposition to 459. And I'll keep it short. The essence of this really is, again, that the governor has vetoed near identical bills. On Let's see. Since the whole biology thing was brought up, I'll address that briefly. I mean, I work extensively in the intersex community. I am brought into medical schools to talk to students about the experience. There are 35 ways that people, I mean, nature is wild. You don't realize that because you don't see it and because we are medically erased. I had 2 operations as a child to bring me into what you expect me to be. That issue will get resolved 20 years from now in the legislature. But right now, what we need to realize is that there are a lot of ways that people vary. And anyway, I'll leave it at that. If you have further questions with it, I'll say that in the process of following these issues over the last year, I worked extensively to support a high school student who was transgender, watched a lot of soccer games, sat in a lot of bleachers, didn't know anything about soccer, learned that in the process. She was never the biggest person on the field. There's always somebody bigger, stronger, faster. There's, when she was in track, their team didn't finish well. There's a lot of things, they just had fun and played. But it's not like she had some she wasn't like a 300-pound linebacker that just won the games. She was out there with her community, with her friends, and that was taken away by 1205 last year. This bill brings us back to, again, enforcement problems. It brings us back to prison guards or school nurses observing genitals without consent. It opens up, there was a case in Utah where a girls' soccer team lost, and they accused one of the players of being transgender and made her get the genital inspection so that, to discourage her from playing. I think she dropped out. This kind of travesty is just going to be encouraged by this kind of thing, just punitive. I don't know in Utah whether they thought she may or may not be transgender, but the last part of this is really that I know a lot of people here consider yourselves to be proponents of small government, of freedom and liberty, but small government does not peek into its citizens' pants. A liberty-minded legislator leaves these concerns to local control. This is not what this law is doing. It's creating some kind of statewide gender police with no biological definition. The amendment says that the definition of biological sex is that a person's a member of that biological sex. I have all kinds of people from medical schools that will tell you that there is no easy, simple definition. It's not X or XY. It's not the SRY gene. It's not penis or no penis. It's much more complicated than that. It's not testosterone. Women have testosterone. But basically this kind of wild law is going to go out and create this state-led gender police. And the governor knows this, and they're going to veto this again. So it's just a waste of time. I suggest that the committee save the effort and declare this bill ITL. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. I'm sorry, Senator, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for taking my question. So with respect to the student that you were in contact with who now can't play on their team, do you think the effect of bills like this are to make it so inhospitable to try to play sports that transgender kids are just going to give up and not get in the arena, if you will, because the state is making it known, we don't want you?
Yeah, that's what happened to her. And, her peers rejected her. She's made fun on school buses. I think there's a case, a friend of mine is a school bus driver in the region. And, there's a boy that was put on a bra and pretended that he was her until he was shut down by the coach. So this whole environment sort of took her ability away to play the sports literally and in terms of community. So she's just doing other stuff, and I think she's going to go to college in Canada and leave the state entirely.
All set. Thank you for your testimony.
Okay.
Nancy Brennan, you still here?
Can't get rid of me.
Who said we want to? You're very enjoyable.
I just want to say before I start my testimony that while I was sitting here listening to things, I looked a couple things up, and I do have that study on sports, and I will be happy to send it to you. Also, the young man with the beard from Massachusetts who said most rapes in prison are trans women against real women. And I can't find that anywhere. I find the opposite. And I will, because I last year when we were going through this, I have this much stuff I used to bring every time in case I got a question. So I will send you that if you're interested, because I think it's important. Yes, we all have opinions, but we also need to see what the facts are. That's it on that. Now on to the next one.
Oh, I thought you were all done. Or... Teasing.
No,
I'm
actually,
sorry.
this is testimony from someone who couldn't be here. Rosie Emmerich, a Hooksett resident and parent of 3 kids who participate in activities and sports. There's been a lot of talk lately about transgender kids in sports, but nobody is actually talking to transgender kids. Nobody is asking them about their experiences or listening to their coaches, teammates, or families. My transgender child currently dances and is so excited to play soccer this year. She didn't choose these activities to win or be the best. She chose them because they bring her joy, make her feel strong, and let her see herself improve when she works hard. That's what youth sports should be about. We are being asked to legislate against a problem that doesn't exist. Transgender kids make up 1% of the youth population, and only a fraction of those play sports. We're talking about a handful of kids across the entire state. Yet we're spending legislative time on this instead of addressing the real threats to girls in sports. The evidence is overwhelming about who actually harms women and girls in sports. Child Help, an organization that works to prevent child abuse, reports that between 14 and 29% of young athletes experience sexual abuse before the age of 18. Coaches are the ` perpetrators. A survey of Olympic-level athletes about their experience of sports in their lifetime showed nearly 28% of athletes say sexual, emotional, or physical misconduct is a problem in their sport. Nearly 10% experienced inappropriate sexual contact themselves. Of those who came forward, 18% faced retaliation, and 93% never reported it. Let that sink in. Up to nearly 1 in 3 young athletes experience sexual assault, most often by their coaches, and 93% who experience misconduct stay silent. And to that unequal opportunities, pay, resources, and facilities compared to boys' programs, these are the crises that deserve your attention. But instead of protecting girls from predatory coaches or fighting for equal funding, we're debating whether my child, who just wants to play soccer and dance with her friends, should be allowed on the team. This bill doesn't protect anyone. It targets vulnerable kids and tells them they don't belong. It tells my child her participation is a threat, while real threats go unaddressed. Trans kids are playing sports in New Hampshire safely and successfully. Their teammates accept them. Their coaches support them. The sky has not fallen. I'm asking you to ITL SB 459 and focus on the real documented problems facing girls in sports. Talk to actual trans kids and their families. Listen to what's really happening in our schools. Protect all our kids by addressing real harm, not imaginary threats. Thank you. And she does give sources for what she has stated.
Any questions? We're all set. We're all set. Thank you. Did I do Amanda Azad yet? Not for this one. Come on back.
Very cranky and needs to be fed. Thank you.
We'll get you home.
I know you all are tired as well. It's been a long afternoon. But good afternoon, Chairperson, Committee. My name is Amanda Azad. I'm the Policy Director at the ACLU of New Hampshire. I wanted to save most of my testimony for this bill because it kind of hits a chord with me based on some experiences and folks that I've talked to. So please bear with me. We have testified against many bills like this one. As I mentioned, one was just vetoed on Friday, one was vetoed last summer, and one was vetoed the year before that, and then the hearing right before this hearing. All women deserve protection, and considering the level of discrimination, harassment, and assault transgender women experience, we should be passing more bills for them in their best interest instead of targeting them with seemingly never-ending lineup of anti-trans bills. Putting all women in situations where they need to start carrying around their birth certificate or some type of proof in case people question them, which they absolutely will, is not a good look for New Hampshire. Discrimination protections are important, and trying to roll them back in New Hampshire makes us look bad as a state. These were protections that were passed with a bipartisan effort, signed by a Republican governor. Bills repealing them were vetoed twice by another Republican governor, but now we are dealing with a constant fire hose of discrimination rollback bills that create, frankly, weird, uncomfortable, and potentially dangerous situations where we are policing people's bodies. It fuels discrimination and encourages vigilantes, pushing the boundaries of privacy and safety, and in some cases, assaulting people in order to try to classify people in public spaces. All of these bills are targeting transgender people in vulnerable situations, but have the impact of hurting us all and creating a really uncomfortable environment that no one wants to deal with. In case anyone is questioning, gender dysphoria is a real, very real thing. These bills are impacting real people. These are people who are loved. These are people who deserve dignity. They deserve all the respect, kindness, and compassion. And instead, we are here dealing with this and 5 other versions of this. We should be taking steps to prevent assault against transgender and gender nonconforming individuals. But instead, research shows that when we have schools denying gender consistent access to locker rooms and bathrooms, there are associations with greater sexual assault among transgender and non-binary teens. Folks have already testified to that. Why would we invite this behavior in different spaces? Research also shows that transgender individuals experience assault, abuse, and family rejection at high levels. So you would think that we should be even more sensitive to their treatment if they end up incarcerated, oftentimes stemming from that type of trauma. I have personally interviewed several transgender women while incarcerated, oftentimes for drug-related convictions that are likely connected to trauma they have experienced, only to be incarcerated in housing situations that have led to abuse, severe and life-threatening injuries, and incredibly sad isolation. These are people. These are someone's children. They deserve to be protected. This is why we trust DOC to be experts in safety, and this is why we have federal laws like the Prison Rape Elimination Act. This legislature does not need to be interfering with and taking away discretion or micromanaging the people who frankly know best. Litigation like that which led to my interviews does not need to be something that happens in New Hampshire. Many times people in these situations are held in isolation or in much higher security than their offense deems necessary due to the overwhelming danger that they face. I have spoken to people who have suffered brain trauma due to attacks in prisons because of their identity. And even if it is hard for some to understand people that seem very different from themselves, it is deeply upsetting and sad to see another person suffering in this way. Do not roll back discrimination protections. Let the professionals follow the Constitution, follow disability laws, follow the Federal Prison Rape Elimination Act, and other policies at different levels and best practices because they understand the threats and the very real harm transgender people face incarcerated. Do not go after some of the most vulnerable people in one of the most vulnerable situations and try to enforce anti-trans bans in an area that needs to be left to the discretion of people who know the situation and can best keep people safe. I urge you to ITL this bill. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Questions? All set? Thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see. David Trumbull? Thanks for your patience, Attorney Trumbull.
Of course. Thank you all for being here and listening to us. My name is David Trumbull. I'm from the town of Ware, and I oppose this bill for 3 reasons. I'll start off with some overview, and then I'll go to sports and prisons. My overview is that this bill misses the opportunity to teach our young people the truth, that transgender girls are girls. They're not boys. That intersex people are real. That transgender people are not the other that you should be afraid of. How can you, Senator Gannon, I understand you want to protect your daughters. I have a daughter and a son myself. I get that. But you can't protect young women by holding on to an old idea that is not true anymore. The old idea that there's only 2 possibilities, men and women. You've heard the scientific evidence. There's 30 different possibilities between those 2 other that are the majority, the vast majority. But this bill is predicated upon scientific fiction. And it's time for us to put that in the past and say, that's not all there is in life. Intersex people exist. Trans people are real. This is a chance to teach the next generation the right thing, rather than base this law on an old idea that is just not true. So I'd like to start with prisons, if that's okay. Transgender women in prison. You've heard some numbers, but I'd like to make it simple. The general population faces about 3 or 4% sexual assault. Trans women face 13 times that. It's over 50%. Rape in the general population in the prison is about 2 or 3%. For trans women, it's 40 to 50% with multiple assaults. So it's almost a given that if a trans woman is in the men's prison, they will be raped repeatedly and sexually assaulted, 13 times more likely. What happens then is that the people who run the prison put them in solitary confinement for their own good. But they don't want to be put in solitary confinement. That would be like being in the space of a couple of these desks put together for 23 and a half hours a day with no one to talk to. It's unfair. It's certainly going to lead to mental illness and psychosis. Imagine being in an 8x10 box by yourself all day long with nobody to talk to for your own good. 85% of trans women in prison end up in solitary confinement, 50% for over 2 years. That's a double punishment. They get punished once for the crime they committed, then they get punished again for being trans. So this bill would double punish people just because they're trans. And there are certainly other alternatives that could be adopted. Certainly. Yep.
Regardless of the prison that they're put in?
Aren't they?
If you're trans, either prison you go to, you're going to have a much higher.
Thank you for that question. I'm not an expert in this, but from my research, that is not the case. A trans woman in a women's prison is not that likely to be assaulted. Also, there are places in the country that have a non-binary wing. It would not require building a new prison. Every prison, if you've done any work in institutions, you know there's lots of locked doors. They could easily reorganize it so that non-binary inmates could be put together in a wing of their own, and then they would not face assault. And I know that's been done in California, and that has been preferred by those inmates. That's an easy, less restrictive alternative. Fundamental rights at stake. When we lock somebody up, take away their liberty, we have to look for less restrictive alternatives. There's no reason to be putting transgender women in a men's prison, knowing that we're condemning them to being raped repeatedly, sexually assaulted, then ending up in solitary confinement. That's a double punishment. So there are alternatives. Any other questions about person? Oh, okay, go to sports. Okay. I've been coached youth sports for like over a dozen years, so it's near dear to my heart. And I look at this issue, the International Olympic Committee, they have 3 guidelines when making this decision: access, competition that's fair, and safety. So I think the decision should be based on those principles rather than a solitary ban, because a ban does not accord the transgender athlete any access whatsoever. Science would dictate that there are going to be sports or certain situations that I can give you a few examples that would allow transgender athletes to participate without causing any of the problems you're working about, and they would be less restrictive alternatives. For example, if a child transitions before they get to puberty, in this case we're talking about a transgender girl, and takes puberty blockers, then takes medication to not get testosterone, she would never have gone through puberty. She would not have the male growth spurt. She would not have testosterone. There is no way she has any competitive advantage. She's not going to have a size advantage or a competitive advantage. Yes, sir.
Am I not wrong that we passed legislation that does not allow that type of treatment to a child under 17, 18?
I think that
under our laws now, people in the future would not be able to do that. 'cause
well,
you're
two
not
things
allowed
about
to
that.
treat
One
it.
is there are students who are already receiving that treatment. The second is that law, my understanding, does not prohibit children who live in New Hampshire from receiving that treatment. It prohibits them from receiving that treatment in New Hampshire. So they could go to Massachusetts, which is where I would imagine a lot of people get healthcare in Massachusetts, so they can get that treatment. But my point is that there is another way to view this, which is instead of a guaranteed ban in every single case, you could say if a child has started the transition before puberty, that they would be allowed to participate. In what way is that a danger to anybody's daughter? They're not going to be bigger. They're not going to be stronger. None of those things are going to happen. So why not allow that as part of your bill? That step would acknowledge that that transgender girl is a girl. And that's a huge step. If you write that into this bill, you're now going from the rhetoric of saying transgender girls are boys and they don't exist, they're not real people, to saying, no, they actually do exist. And we're going to acknowledge that in New Hampshire. I think that would be a big exception to put into the law. The other thing is there's a lot of evidence that indicates there is no competitive advantage for transgender athletes if they take suppressing drugs. The Canadian Centre for Ethics in the Sport did a 10-year review of all peer-reviewed studies in 2022. It's called Literature Review, does not support bans on transgender women athletes. And they said after 12 months, there's no firm basis available in evidence to indicate trans women have a consistent and measurable overall performance benefit after 12 months. There was an Australian study that said after 24 months of testosterone suppressing, there's no advantage in running events. So all I'm saying is it could be based on science. Instead of you imposing a ban in every single case, which is not fair to those transgender students who want to participate in a sport, look at the different sports. Not every sport's the same. If they've taken the medication for 24 months and there's no advantage, why not allow them to participate? Again, this is not the same thing as was mentioned earlier about somebody who's 45, is curly in a male body, grew up as male. We're talking about young children. If they're making the transition, why not do that? And the last thing I want to say is that I think this whole idea of lost scholarship, which there is no evidence, you'll remember Dr. Jennifer testified about that last year. There's never been an example in New Hampshire. But what's the point of youth sports? Is it to win, or is it to grow as a person and to work with teammates and travel together and have fun? The transgender child wants to access that just as much as everybody else's child. And when you put a ban in and says to everyone, you're not welcome here, you're telling trans families, don't come to New Hampshire. you're not welcome here. So we're losing those families. We know that. We've read the stories in the paper. They're leaving the state. But other fair-minded people are saying, I don't want to live in New Hampshire. If they're young, they're 24, they went to college, they say, I'm going to pick a state. I want to be back in New England around my parents and my grandparents. I'll pick any other state because New Hampshire is developing a reputation as being intolerant as a society. This bill is not, it may solve one little problem in a couple little cases, but the damage it does to our state and to these transgender children is far outweighs that tiny advantage that you might be getting.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions? Senator Appes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for taking my question. I always say this, you always answer the hard questions, so it's always appreciated. For a young athlete that's in the process of transitioning, you said there's been scientific studies. I have one that was been provided here that says after a year of hormonal therapy, there's no athletic advantage. That's what I have in front of me. Is there actually an agreement in the scientific community on how, far into the transitioning process an athlete, a trans woman would have to be in order for there not to be a competitive advantage?
Senator Abbas, thank you for the question. I always enjoy talking with you too. One of the problems is trans athletes are afraid to participate in studies because they're getting targeted left and right. So there are studies, like I gave you that Canadian study, look at all the peer-reviewed studies over a 10-year period. We need more research, but to do that, we have to be more tolerant of people and say, let's make it so that people would want to be participants in studies. But the studies that we have show that there is very, very little competitive advantage, maybe 1% or something like that. And as you go out to 18 months and 24 months, it really starts to disappear. So is there a consensus? I can't say that, but I don't think we have enough evidence yet. We need more evidence, but don't do a ban until you have the evidence. What little evidence you have says that whatever advantage there is disappearing with every month of treatment. And you heard the personal testimonies about somebody who transitioned and they can't even lift the bag of wood pellets anymore. So it just feels like we're going too far with too little evidence.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You hear people say we need to narrowly tailor this legislation, but without a consensus in the scientific community, you're asking us to wait for the science first before making the ban. But you said in your answer to my last question, there isn't some degree of a competitive advantage.
Okay, I thank you, Senator, for that question. That assumes that the alternative to this bill is nothing. The alternative before all these bills came along was to let sports organizations figure this out for themselves. Let the coaches, let the athletes, the leagues work it out. Each sport's going to be different. That makes a lot more sense than the state coming down and saying, we're going to we don't have the evidence, we don't really know what we're doing, but we're going to impose a ban on every sport across the board. The alternative is not all or nothing. There's alternatives. Let youth organizations figure this out for themselves, different sports, let the coaches be involved. Listen to the trans athletes. Tell them that their voice is important too.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your testimony today.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for coming in. Devin Quinn. Devin, can you do it in under 3 minutes? You can. You know you can.
Yes, because I have to pick up my kids, and
Okay.
4 o'clock was my deadline to
Okay.
get out of here. So Saved by the Bell.
It's actually just struck 4.
Well, thank you for your testimony since it's 4.
My iPhone says 3:58, so 2 minutes then. Chairman Gannon and members of the committee, thank you for your time. My name is Devin Quinn from the New Hampshire Women's Foundation. We are adamantly opposed to this bill. As many have said before, this bill harms trans girls, and trans girls are girls. And that is enough for us to be adamantly opposed to this bill, full stop. And I wish that was the end of my testimony, but I'd like to add another argument to this conversation, in that this bill, in addition to harming trans girls, also harms cis girls. It harms trans girls, cis girls, and all girls. And here's how. What I read in line 16 and 17 is that the way we're determining sex is through an official birth certificate. The enforcement is not really explicitly laid out here, but it's pointing towards a birth certificate. So therefore, a birth certificate is going to be needed at some point. But earlier it says that, or later it says that boys' sports will be open to all genders and girls limited to girls or females, or what the amendment says. Meaning that there would be no reason to show a birth certificate for boys' sports, but there is a reason to show a birth certificate for a girls' sport. This is an added burden on all girls playing sports. Regardless if you're trans or cis, if you're a girl playing sport, there's an extra layer of bureaucracy, of organization, of something else you have to do that boys don't have to do.
If you want to play a boys' sport.
No, if girls want to play girls' sports, they have to provide.
It's amended, but okay, go on. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
So imagine for this purpose, a mother has twins and also underrepresented group in policy, but she has twins. They're a boy and a girl. They go to high school. They both want to play volleyball, and they wake up that morning. They're ready to go try out. The boy walks right in, and the girl says, "Oh, Mom, I forgot. I need a birth certificate." Mom says, "I have no idea where that birth certificate is. I guess you can't try out now." That is stopping a girl from playing sports. Let's say she finds her birth certificate and she gives it. That girl maybe loses it because she's in high school. Now she's lost her birth certificate, but her brother, he didn't have to bring it, so he didn't lose it. And also, by the way, we need a birth certificate to register to vote now. So maybe this is disenfranchising girls as well. Let's say that she finds her birth certificate, she's able to try out. Let's say she makes the team. Is the coach supposed to be the person who evaluates birth certificates and knows what a legitimate birth certificate looks like or not? Is that a liability that a coach wants to take on? Because it's easier now, there's less liability for coaches to coach boys' sports. So are we now limiting the amount of coaches for girls' sports? Let's say that we have it, the coach has all birth certificates. Let's say an opposing team says, "I'd like to see the birth certificates of your teammates." The coach forgets to bring that copy. They lose the game, they have to forfeit it, but the boys didn't have to do that. Let's say that, you get my point.
I got your point.
This harms cis girls as well as trans girls.
Thank you for your testimony. We're all set, thanks. Does anyone else wish to testify? Did we miss anybody along the way? Come on back up. Just repeat your name for the record.
Yeah,
also.
sure. I'll hand this in after. My name's April Landry. Once again, I am an Auburn resident. I'm here representing myself. I will skip the part about how I moved here, 20 years, wife, blah, blah, blah. While I did not come out as transgender till my mid-30s, I knew I was trans for as long as I can remember and spent my entire life wrestling with that and put off a lot of things out of fear of coming out and being, labeled as a trans person. I remember being bullied and treated differently by the kids around me that didn't know I was trans because I was just a little boy that was off. And it forced me out of sports over time because I didn't feel right in the men's sports or surrounded by men. If I had come out, I can only imagine how much less I would have felt welcome in whatever side of the thing I was in. And while I played soccer and baseball early on as a kid, I knew it wasn't for me and got out of sports early on in middle school. If I had been given the option to play field hockey or something, what would have been different for me? Like what opportunities did I not get because of this? I can only imagine the kids who want to be their authentic selves and are afraid to do so because of this kind of stuff being talked about all the time. While life for me was hard as a kid, this bill would make it harder for kids today than I ever had to deal with. It creates an environment where a small subset of New Hampshire kids are punished just for wanting to come out as themselves. Imagine how these kids are going to feel hearing that this decision was made at the same time that we were making decisions about prisoners and getting lumped in with that kind of stuff, that you equal you. And I'm not saying that because prisoners are bad or anything like that. I'm just, what's a kid going to think about this? And then a thing that I haven't heard a lot about at all today, it seems very unspoken, is suicide. I don't think anybody here wants kids driven to suicide, right? And yet this is going to do that. I'm going to try to read a little bit, like 2 paragraphs of something, And I'm going to be very quick because I'm a quick talker, and I'm going to try not to cry, but every time I read this, I cry. Governor Cox in Utah put this out in 2022. They were trying to figure out their sports restrictions. I'm just going to read 2 paragraphs. Finally, there's an important reason I vetoed this. I must admit, I'm not an expert on transgenderism. I struggle to understand how so much of it and the science is conflicting. When in doubt, I always try to err on the side of kindness, mercy, and compassion. I try to get proximate, and I'm learning so much from our community. They're great kids who face enormous struggles. And here's some numbers. This is obviously focused on Utah. It's not going to be New Hampshire, but you can assume the numbers are similar. In Utah, 75,000 high school kids participating in sports. 4 transgender kids were in Utah. 1 kid wanted to play sports. 86% of trans youth report suicide. I'm sorry, I'm just going to get a little sloppy. 56% of trans youth have attempted suicide. That's what's going to happen here. And I don't think any of you want that, right?
Thank you. I know it's hard. Appreciate you coming in today. Anyone else wish to testify on 459 who didn't get a chance? Seeing none, I'll end the hearing. 1 to go.
Okay. There is one for you. She printed those out. All right, good, thanks. Okay.
Senator Oshler, thank you for your patience today to get to your bill.
All right, we're at the next one.
We're ready.
551. You got it.
I promise, Senator Oshler, I will read your 4 pages.
You
I
will?
know you know your material wicked good, so you could just summarize the
You know
whole
what, this
thing.
is why I usually don't give you my testimony, because I know you're gonna do that. So pretend that didn't hit your desk yet.
Okay, let her rip.
All right. Thank you, Chairman Gannon and honorable committee members. It's a pleasure to serve with you, especially on extended days like this. For the record, my name is Deborah Altschuler. I represent Senate District 24, which includes the towns of Exeter, Greenland, Hampton, Hampton Falls, Northampton, Rye, and Stratham. Senate Bill 551 will establish critical legal protections for reproductive health care in New Hampshire, protecting both patients and providers' access to receive and deliver essential health care. And we know since the Dobbs decision in 2022 that shield laws, this is a shield law, have become essential infrastructure for reproductive health care. And the evidence from states that enacted similar legislation demonstrates their profound impact. The states that have instituted shield laws are listed on the back page of your testimony, of my testimony to you. For example, when a court ruling halted IVF care in Alabama in 2024, a patient may have chosen to travel to New Hampshire. Maybe they have family here in New Hampshire to receive care and begin their family. Under a New Hampshire shield law, that patient and their Granite State provider will be protected. Last year, South Carolina introduced legislation to redefine legal contraception to exclude methods such as IUDs and emergency contraception like Plan B. If this law were to pass and a South Carolina patient traveled to New Hampshire to receive an IUD, under a New Hampshire Shield law, both they and their Granite State provider would be protected. So Senate Bill 551 will codify the right to reproductive health care services, making clear access, providing, and helping other people access reproductive health care services provided by licensed New Hampshire clinicians within our borders as legally protected activity, so long as it meets medical standards of care, which is very important. Senate Bill 551 will protect against out-of-state overreach. For example, if an attorney general from a state that restricts or bans access to reproductive health care services were to sue a New Hampshire provider for providing care to a resident of that state, the Shield law dictates that the New Hampshire law would govern the proceedings of that lawsuit if the care occurred within the jurisdiction of New Hampshire and followed New Hampshire law. It prohibits all state, municipal, and county officials from cooperating in any way with requests for information, investigations, or abusive litigation. It prohibits the extradition of any New Hampshire resident to another state where they may be charged with a crime simply for providing or receiving legal care in New Hampshire, and protects providers' licensure as a result of engaging in legally protected healthcare activities here in New Hampshire, and gives any person subject to abusive litigation filed in another state the option to pursue civil action against that actor within 3 years. So Senate Bill 551 rests firmly on longstanding doctrines of federalism and state sovereignty, two doctrines core to New Hampshire. The U.S. Constitution establishes a federal system in which states retain broad police powers, including authority over healthcare, medical licensure, and civil and criminal law within their state borders. Under this system of federalism, the state may decide what conduct is lawful within its borders. The Granite State needs these protections now. New Hampshire has a very strong tradition of individual liberty and limited government interference in personal decisions. Senate Bill 551 embodies these values by affirming our state sovereignty, protecting New Hampshire providers, and ensuring patient privacy. The evidence is clear. The experience of 22 states across the political spectrum with Shield laws demonstrate that these protections successfully shield providers from out-of-state legal attacks, enable patients to access care who otherwise could not, and respect state sovereignty and the principles of federalism. Allow healthcare providers to practice according to professional standards set by New Hampshire. I urge this committee to support Senate Bill 551 and ensure that New Hampshire protects the rights of patients to access legal reproductive health care and the rights of our providers to practice medicine according to New Hampshire law. And I thank you. I would like to also add that you'll hear other testimony. We have a significant problem coming at us. We don't have enough OBGYNs here in New Hampshire, and we have a very limited number of people training to be OBGYNs, and we are surrounded by states that protect their providers. How on earth do we expect to recruit young talent to this state if we won't tell them we'll have their back? We should have our providers back. I'm thrilled to take any questions. Yes.
Senator Abbas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for taking my question. And
yes,
I'm on page 2, lines 3 to 9.
Okay.
And I just believe the intent of the bill is to basically, whether it's Texas law, Alabama law, whatever law they're passing over there.
Correct.
We don't want to have to enforce that here. In regards to civil judgments, there's a compact where 45 states have adopted, including New Hampshire. Massachusetts has not, but where if someone has a civil judgment, you can go to that other state and they will, for enforcement purposes. The problem is if you were to breach that pact, you're out of the pact. Now, it's a policy consideration whether we want to remain in the pact, but my reading of this section, if someone had a civil judgment and then they came to New Hampshire to enforce it, well, it's to recover a monetary value, they wouldn't be able to do so under this paragraph.
Could you, thank you for the question, Senator Abbas. Could I just ask a clarifying question to yours? Are you saying someone comes to New Hampshire to pursue a civil claim, or they were denied services?
They already have
in another.
They have a judgment. They received the civil judgment. It's a final judgment. If they want to then enforce that in New Hampshire, they can bring that civil judgment here. Is the point that I'm making. It wouldn't have to be certified separately. So what I'm asking is, does that section, would it violate that pact? Is all I'm asking.
I'm going to defer my answer to Senator Reardon, who seems ready to answer it.
I'm going to let you, even though it's not really the practice.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
No objection.
So I think the paragraph right here says, attempting to enforce any order or judgment issued in connection with any such action by a party, talking about under this law here. So it's not attaching real property or somebody's paycheck to get the damages that you've won in some other state. It's talking about a judgment in connection with any other party. So a doctor in South Carolina or a patient in South Carolina is found guilty of having an IUD. That can't then come to New Hampshire and say the person stayed here because they know they're in jeopardy in South Carolina. That South Carolina judgment can't then become enforced on somebody here in the state of New Hampshire. We're not talking about attaching property or anything like that in some run-of-the-mill civil damages trial. We're talking about under this law, actions under this law.
Yes, but the point that I was making is if we don't enforce all civil judgments, we essentially violate that pact agreement. I understand what you're saying, but there was that was the question I had. Can I ask one follow-up?
Yes.
Same page 2. Now I'm on lines 10 to 17.
Page 10? I mean, page 2?
Page 2, lines 10 to 17. If you go to the end of that paragraph, it says basically any future legislators who pass any law that otherwise creates any type of infringement on reproductive health shall be deemed invalid and shall have no force and effect. With legislation, my understanding is this would be binding future legislators, would it not?
No.
You don't believe it is?
No, I don't.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Senator. Jason Hennessy. Good afternoon, Mr. Hennessy.
Good afternoon, honorable senators, Mr. Chair. My name is Jason Hennessy. I'm here to represent New Hampshire Right to Life, New Hampshire's largest pro-life organization, and we oppose this bill. So the big thing I want to point out is that this bill singles out one particular industry for a special exemption from our laws. We don't treat other industries like this. But actually, the rest of my testimony is not going to be from a pro-life perspective, particularly. It's that I believe this is just bad policy. So I don't know if you guys are familiar, but there's a case where a Texas, allegedly from the public documents I've read, a Texas woman ordered abortion pills from a New York doctor. The doctor mailed them, and then the woman ended up in the hospital because the abortion pill, some studies say that it's like 20 times actually more dangerous than the label says. She ends up at the hospital, and then the New York doctor was charged with 2 things. One was violating the Texas abortion law, but the other one was practicing without a license. And New York is unwilling to cooperate on any of those things, as far as I'm aware. So this creates interstate commerce and full faith and credit constitutional challenges. I also want to point out that this bill on the second page that Senator Abbas pointed out earlier, between lines 10 and 17, creates a right to reproductive freedom. Without talking about the moral issues on that, I just want to point out that the fiscal note says that the costs, expenditures are indeterminable. And I would say that is a vast understatement. Because now, if there is a right to reproductive freedom, perhaps the state, is it a positive right or a negative right? If it's a positive right, then the state is now obligated to pay for anything that could be classified as reproductive freedom. That could include surrogacy, could be considered genetic screening of the children you want if you're doing IVF. There's all sorts of things that could be applied to. So I would ask you, why protect one industry from lawsuits or criminal actions when there are many controversial industries that we don't do this for? I also want to point out that our relationships with the other states could be put at jeopardy. You guys talked about a little bit of it, but what if this provokes retaliatory legislation from other states that doesn't let us enforce our laws on other topics in other states when you have a judgment? Or what happens if other law enforcement agencies, they ask us for help on their things, and then we go to them to ask them for help on our things, and they say, no, you wouldn't cooperate with me here. I mean, it's not in the law, it's just in practice, but that we all know that kind of stuff happens. This bill by design reduces interstate law enforcement cooperation. I also think that if you look at the Texas and Louisiana cases against the New York doctor, that's probably going to go to the Supreme Court. I mean, just from a practical litigation perspective, you might just want to wait to see how those play out just to save the money. Let them pay for that. So with that, I would be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So generally, with all laws I've seen in any type of criminal code, and a parallel example would be if someone sends a lewd image to someone that they didn't consent to receive. Right? If they're here in New Hampshire and they send it to someone in another state, the crime occurs in New Hampshire because that's where the illegal action was. They're violating New Hampshire law and they sent the image out. You wouldn't be prosecuted under the other state's law because you're never in that state in the first place. So we have the issue you're bringing up with the doctor in New York never went to Texas at all. So there's a jurisdiction element there. So how the Supreme Court, maybe they'll rule differently, but that would not just overturn that law, they would uphold that law, but that would mess up a bunch of other laws in the process. So I'm asking, how do you expect New Hampshire to prosecute someone for conduct if they go to another state and it's legal in that state, and regardless of the topic? I understand we're on a bill involving abortion, but if they're in a state, when in Rome, right?
Thank you, Senator.
I mean, we had two bills on bathrooms. You go to another state where you have to use the bathroom for your biological sex in that state. Is New Hampshire going to prosecute someone, or is another state going to not prosecute you, even though your illegal act was in the other state? I never heard of that.
So thank you for the question, Senator Abbas. I think this would probably fall under interstate commerce because there's a lot of things like what, for example, I'm thinking about the
but that's a federal question, not
right. But this would touch on it, and that's why this New York Texas thing is in the federal courts, is because there's some unanswered questions here. I would think of the privacy bill that you guys, I don't know if it was your committee, but the New Hampshire legislature passed, I want to say 2 years ago, that says that companies in other states are liable in New Hampshire if they violate your privacy because the victim was in New Hampshire, for example. And so there are some interesting issues about interstate and how that interacts with this. But I think that this legislation would be carving out one specific industry rather than something more broad.
Thank you.
Do you have a problem with where? Thank you. do you have a problem where it's any individual present versus a citizen of New Hampshire? So when people come to the state, I would think that citizens might have a right. I would not know that every individual present would have a right. Does that concern you? No?
I
My
guess
problem. I'll think about it later.
I don't have a good answer for you, Senator.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Are we all set? She has a question for you. Go ahead, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for taking my question. You did assert in your testimony that we don't have carve-outs for any other kind of industry, and would you believe that we actually do? And that we carve out special exceptions for the firearms industry?
I'm not aware, but I could believe that.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank
Does
you, Mr.
anyone
Chair.
else wish to testify on 551? Seeing none? Oh, come on up.
There's a sign-up sheet somewhere. That was the second sheet.
Oh, okay. Oh, no. We've got a much longer day. Oh. But I'm happy to see you. Go ahead. Tell me who you are.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Dr. Carrie Wong. I'm an OBGYN resident who's currently training at Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center, and I would like to speak in strong support of SB 551. To be honest, it's a little bit of a surprise for me to find myself in New Hampshire in the first place, just because most of my educational training up to this point had taken place in the South. I went to Duke University for undergrad, and then I received my MD at the University of South Florida in Tampa. So you can imagine the surprise of all my classmates when I declared there was no way I was going to do my residency training in the South. The Dobbs decision occurred during my third year of medical school, and it changed my life trajectory overnight. There was no way that I was going to continue to practice at my home institutions when I knew that I couldn't practice safe, evidence-based, science-backed care without a concern of being criminalized. So I was thrilled to match at Dartmouth, and I know that there are many of my medical school classmates who are now practicing as doctors who made very similar decisions. Frankly, I think Florida has lost a lot of doctors over this decision. Now I'm at Dartmouth. And to be honest, I love serving the citizens of New Hampshire. I've absolutely loved my time here in this community. But to be honest, I'm in my second year of residency. I'm looking towards where I'd like to practice as an attending physician, and I'm not convinced that New Hampshire is still the state for me. And it pains me to have to say that, but honestly, it is because we do not have a common sense shield law on the books that can protect me and my patients in the future. It is a big pill you are asking your doctors to swallow to take that kind of liability on when I could just go to Vermont or Massachusetts or Maine, other states that have taken steps to protect their providers. That is a tough pill to swallow. And honestly, I think it would be a travesty if New Hampshire lost scores of its best and brightest young physicians to neighboring Massachusetts just because we don't have a common sense law like that on the books. I don't think it's fair. I appreciate that this community will have spent 4 years of time, of effort, of mentorship of the older physicians in this state investing into me. And honestly, it feels like a slap in the face for me and other new graduates to go off and practice in different states. But that is the reality of the situation that we are facing. The job market for OBGYNs is incredibly competitive. There is a huge lack of OBGYN physicians across the country. So essentially, when I graduate, I get to decide where I want to practice. And on the flip side, this lack of OBGYN physicians affects your constituents, right? 50% of your constituents have a uterus. They're going to have to look for OBGYN providers at some point in their life. And I would argue that this is an issue that is near and dear to the other 50% as well, as they're watching their mothers, their wives, their daughters, their sisters, their neighbors, their friends struggle to get appropriate healthcare in this state. And to be frankly honest, I think it's already affecting the healthcare in this state. I would be lying if I told you that this lack of protection doesn't sit in the back of my brain every single time I enter an exam room, every single time I talk to a patient, every time I touch a patient. And honestly, I think it's unconscionable that I'm sitting there with a patient asking her, where have you come from? Are you from New Hampshire? Or asking if she's traveled instead of focusing on the person in front of me who is going through sometimes the most private, the most personal, the most painful medical moments of their lives. And it hurts my heart to think that those conversations are going differently, like 15 minutes across the border in Vermont, to be honest. And I might leave you with this, which is to say I'm really appreciative of the hard work and the dedication I know that you do every single day for the citizens of New Hampshire. I appreciate that. I'm imploring you to use your power and your privilege and your position as a legislature to do the right thing. I want you to live up to the trust that your constituents have put in you to make decisions that benefit everyday New Hampshire citizens. I would very much like to continue to be one of those. So I'm hoping for you to make a decision that makes it possible for me to do so. And I know that there were comments previously about the safety of certain reproductive healthcare decisions that occur in the state of New Hampshire. The study that was referenced that makes the abortion pill 22 times more dangerous than others is not something that's been repeated by any other peer-backed science. It is not honestly in line with reputable scientific journals who have repeated these studies year and year again. And additionally, as somebody who has delivered babies, I can say that pregnancy is something that poses real risk and harm to a patient. I don't know if any of you have ever performed a stat C-section or had to personally scoop a liter worth of blood clots out of somebody's uterus because of a hemorrhage. I have done both those things. I've done them repeatedly. I'm not pretending to be a legislator or somebody who understands all the policy, but I am a doctor. I'm asking that you help me continue to do my job in this state. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. We're all set. Thank you. Dr. Danielle Boucher? She left, okay. Christina Hamilton?
Thank you, committee, and thank you for your time. I took a moment to gather my thoughts. I'm going to read them from my phone just to make sure that I make all the points that I wanted to about some of the things that have been brought up today. My name is Christina Warner Hamilton. I serve as the New Hampshire State Director for Reproductive Equity Now. It's been asserted this afternoon that SB 551 violates the Constitution, perhaps. You'll find more detail on this in the written testimony that we submitted, but I wanted to clarify that this bill has been narrowly crafted to comport with exceptions to the full faith and credit clause of the U.S. Constitution, which does not require blanket enforcement of conflicting state laws. Courts have long recognized that states may decline to enforce out-of-state laws that conflict with their local public policy interests, and this legislation is tailored so that it does not invalidate final judgments rendered in other states, but rather limits cooperation with out-of-state investigations that are specific to this lawful conduct in New Hampshire. I also want to clarify that legislation was filed in 2024 that involved interstate telehealth. This bill is specific to care provided within New Hampshire's borders by New Hampshire healthcare providers. So this speaks to the fact that New Hampshire has jurisdiction over their own healthcare, that our law enforcement has jurisdiction over enacting our own laws and not the laws of other states. Thank you.
No way. That was very quick. Thank you. I thought you'd go way longer. Senator Abbas. No, I thought you had like 3 or 4 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Has there been any occurrence where a New Hampshire physician has been charged with or sued in other states because of not a violation of New Hampshire law, but what they're doing lawfully here in New Hampshire, but they're being charged or sued in other states that they never actually went in?
Thank you for the question. To my knowledge, not yet. We have seen other doctors across the country face lawsuits of this matter. This is why, this is in response to actions that have happened both in New York and California, where doctors who have never stepped foot in another state have been charged for actions such as these.
And if one follow-up,
yep.
In those cases, are those being going through the federal courts right now?
Yes, I believe that they are both in the court system.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, thank you for your quick testimony.
You got it.
Who else do I have? Who I have Miss Sarah Smith? No? Okay, I got you. You were number 2. Come on down.
I'll also try to be brief, as I know we anticipated testifying at like 2 o'clock. So.
Sorry.
No, not your fault. Thank you, Mr. Chair and honorable members of the committee. For the record, my name is Rachel Potter and I serve as Policy Associate at the ACLU of New Hampshire. And I'm here today to testify in support of this bill. SB 551 provides clear practical protections for patients and providers who are acting lawfully under New Hampshire law. This bill is simple and it's about a simple and important principle that New Hampshire should not use its resources to punish or interfere with conduct that is lawful here in New Hampshire. And this bill affirms that when patients and providers follow New Hampshire law in accessing or providing reproductive health care, they should not face harassment or legal risk driven by the laws of another state. This bill protects against exactly that scenario by limiting the use of New Hampshire courts and officials to assist out-of-state investigations or lawsuits targeting care that is legal here. And as others have said, why does this matter now? Because in this post-Dobbs landscape, we are seeing states attempt to extend their abortion bans beyond their borders and into other states. And some states are trying to impose their policy preferences nationwide by suing providers who operate entirely lawfully in states where that care remains legal, such as in New Hampshire. So those cases show that these cross-state disputes are not hypothetical and they are happening now, even if they haven't reached us yet. So without clear protections, the result is confusion and a chilling effect. And providers may hesitate to offer lawful care, as you heard the very articulate doctor before me. Patients may worry that their private medical decisions could trigger out-of-state scrutiny, and that kind of uncertainty is really bad public policy and undermines trust in the healthcare system. And this bill, all it does is create clarity. It tells providers and patients that if they follow New Hampshire law, New Hampshire will stand behind its legal framework. And it also protects patient privacy and the integrity of the patient-provider relationship, which are core concerns here in the Live Free or Die state. And importantly, this bill does not interfere with another state's ability to enforce its own laws within its own borders. It's consistent with the Federalist principles that simply declines to involve New Hampshire in enforcing the policies of other states that conflict with our own laws. So ultimately, it's about stability, clarity, and respecting lawful medical care in New Hampshire. And so for those reasons, we urge you to support it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions? Anyone else? Okay, that'll close the hearing.
Are there any members of the public who wish to testify that have not testified already? Seeing none.
Close the hearing.
He tells me to.
I had a question and I just didn't want to ask it. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
We adjourn, yep.